To start this timeline, we open at age 764, as it has almost been a year since Frieza was defeated on Namek at the hands of Goku, though he still hasn't returned to Earth yet, while everyone was still waiting for his return. One day, while Gohan was studying, he senses a huge key coming to the Earth, which, after noticing it, Krillin calls him and asks if he knows that key too. Then they discuss that they felt this key before, which, up on King Kai's planet, he was keeping track of this situation too, as he was shocked to believe that Frieza was still alive. Even Piccolo, who was out training in the wastelands, notices it, though when Vegeta notices the key, he passes this information on to Bulma and Yamcha. Lastly, Tien and Shotsu notices power too, but he mentions that there's another power there with Frieza, up on Frieza's ship. Now Cyborg Tyrant is talking to his father about them reaching Earth faster than the monkey that caused his injuries. King Cold still suggests destroying this planet in a single blast, so that they wouldn't have to waste their time in a fight. Frieza still turns this down though, as he doesn't think it would be satisfying, as he wants to show off his new power to Goku. However, Frieza would notice Goku's ship on the radar and realize he's heading to Earth as well. Anyway, Gohan quickly gets dressed in his Saiyan armor and leaves, without telling Chi-Chi where he's going, so she tries to yell after him, but as he's flying away, Krillin meets up with him and they discuss both Frieza's key and the other huge key that's there with him. In the northern wastelands, Vegeta and Yamcha are already there, since they think this is where Frieza is going to land. Much to their surprise though, Bulma shows up with Puar, saying that she'd never seen Frieza on Namek, so she wanted to see him now. Then when Yamcha questions if she should really be here, she asks if it matters where she is, since they're most likely doomed anyway without Goku's help. Tien is the next one to arrive, and he briefly bickers with Vegeta, as he doesn't know how Yamcha can stand living with the one that killed him. Though while Yamcha and Tien are talking, Vegeta tells them to suppress their powers, as the Frieza Force has scouters. Vegeta then mentions the Namekian being a true warrior as he has already suppressed his power, which is when the others realize Piccolo was there already. Gohan and Krillin are the last ones to arrive, but before they can talk with the others, Piccolo shouts that they are here. As the ship lands, Vegeta tells the others not to fly, they're going to walk over so their power stays suppressed. The Yamcha starts to freak out saying it's hopeless, but Piccolo asks him if they should just lie down and die then, because it isn't any more hopeless if they do fight. Though Vegeta chimes in and says it's way more than hopeless for them, this is the end of the Earth. Once the two tyrants exit their ship, King Cold asks Frieza if he's going to wait for the 3 hours until Goku arrives, which Frieza says he is, but he wants him to suffer first, so he'll kill all the Earthlings before he arrives. So, Frieza tells all his men to scatter and take out the Earthlings, but before they could, a mysterious warrior lands in front of the two tyrants. When Frieza asks what this Earthling wants, he says he's come to kill him. As they talk and this mysterious warrior reveals he knows Frieza's name, the tyrant would say he's honored that they know about him on this backwater planet. Frieza tells the soldier to get rid of him, but the warrior easily takes the soldier down. Then as the other soldiers attack him, he easily kills them all with his sword. The heroes at this time would realize that a big key appeared as a lot of the smaller keys disappeared at the same time. As Frieza gets ready to fight this warrior, he tells the tyrant that he made a miscalculation in thinking that Goku was the only Super Saiyan, as he transforms into a Super Saiyan as well. Gohan would mistake this key for being Goku, while Frieza gets angered and tries to blast the Super Saiyan, though he easily dodges this and sends a blast at the two tyrants. As they dodge it, he comes down from above with his sword, slicing Frieza in half. He then slices Frieza into bits and blasts him away, much to the shock of King Cold and the heroes. As Vegeta flies off towards the battlefield, Bulma thinks that this is Goku, but Yamcha tells her it's someone else. All the heroes then fly off too, so Yamcha follows suit and takes off. Back at the battlefield, as King Cold lands in front of the warrior that killed his son, he offers him to take his place in the Empire as his son instead. Though, he turns it down of course, which angers the monarch. Regardless, he asks to see the sword that he killed Frieza with, so he tosses it to the Emperor. King Cold would then say that without his sword he could never have defeated Frieza, and he tries to attack him. However, he easily catches his sword and stops him, then blasts the tyrant through the chest, sending him flying and landing against a mountain. As he is lying against it, he offers him a planet, then a solar system, and then to change his ways if he is spared. Normally, this offer isn't taken, and King Cold is killed, but this version of Trunks is slightly different than the one we know, though I won't get into how his timeline is different until a later part, as it is a long story. Anyway, Trunks would accept his offer of changing his ways, but he warns him that if this turns out to be a trick, he will find the monarch and end him once and for all. King Cold is more level-headed and more intelligent than his son Frieza, so he would know not to press the matter, so he gets up and limps to his ship, then once inside he is helped into a healing pod while his ship leaves the Earth. After this, Trunks yells out to the onlooking heroes that he is going to meet with Goku if they'd want to join him, which they would all go with him, but Vegeta is even angrier at there being another Super Saiyan and that he let King Cold go. After they follow him, Vegeta tries to get answers from him about why he can go Super Saiyan, who he is, and why he spared King Cold, but Trunks would say he can't tell him any of this. Anyway, the rest of the time that Trunks is on Earth goes the same way as in the regular timeline, with them all waiting for Goku. Once Goku arrives, Trunks would ask to talk to him privately, so once they get far enough away, Goku says he was going to teleport there to defeat Frieza, but someone else did before he could. Anyway, the two go Super Saiyan and have a quick little sparring match. After this, he explained he came from the future and that he is Vegeta's son. He gives a warning that in 3 years from now on May 12th, two androids will appear at roughly 10 AM on the island 9 kilometers southwest of South City. He would still explain the part about Dr. Gero and the Red Ribbon Army, along with the part about him being the only fighter left, along with what happened to future Gohan. Lastly, he explains the part about the heart virus and gives Goku the medicine, before going on to reveal that his mother made the time machine, but he still reveals his mother is Bulma when Goku asks, and makes him promise to keep that a secret. After he leaves, Goku is having trouble figuring out how to explain it, so since Piccolo heard it all, he explains everything except who Trunks' parents are. After this, they all vow to start training, and they see the time machine leave as Trunks waves goodbye. Goku then explains how he survived Namek and went to Yarjet, reveals he learned to teleport, which he shows off by getting Master Roshi's sunglasses. Bulma still suggests summoning Shenron and wishing for the androids to be killed, but Vegeta threatens to kill her if she does this. Anyway, all the heroes then take off to start training in preparation for the androids. Meanwhile, up in the depths of space, King Cold is still recovering in the healing pod. However, while he is, word is being spread around his empire about the defeat of him and his son at the hands of the Saiyan, and that he even begs for mercy. So, with Frieza gone, the empire basically becomes the Cold Force again, but many of his troops start to desert. Planets, too, would start to respond in kind, rebelling against the weakened numbers of the Monarch's forces, which, as he is healing, he can do absolutely nothing about this, until he fully recovers at least. Though his other son Cooler would be disappointed that his brother was defeated, and his father begged for mercy from the same lowly monkey. So, he started to attack the weakened remnants of the Cold Empire, conquering some of the planets and adding them to his own empire. When King Cold awakens, he's greeted with the picture of his empire being in shambles, to say the least. He now has two major problems on his plate, rebelling planets and his son Cooler. Since his empire is on the verge of collapsing, he decides to deal with it first. As the planets keep successfully winning their rebellions, there won't be an empire left. With the warning he received from that mysterious warrior, he would be stuck on what to do at first, as he'll be killed if he returns to his old ways. So, after having to think quickly, he hastily comes up with a move of desperation, which is to grant more amenities to the planets that are rebelling. However, this proves far more useful than he would ever have anticipated. With more supplies provided to them, their production is basically able to skyrocket now. So, this basically is a revelation to the monarch that he doesn't have to run his empire just by ruling with an iron fist and by spreading terror. It's the beginning of a new age for his empire, one where commerce and trade was far more important in his empire than just the sheer power of his men. Though, he still will offer his forces for protection against the forces of Cooler. Also, if he absolutely had to, he would use his forces for matters of aggression, but that's basically a last resort. After a while of his empire starting to boom in production, King Cold would basically end the trial phase of this and he decides to run his whole empire like this. So, he expands these benefits of extra amenities from the previous rebelling planets to all the planets in his empire. He would also experiment with setting up a tourism service in his empire, so that the people in his kingdom could visit other planets within his domain. This, of course, would bring more money to his empire, thus furthering it being an empire based on trade and commerce. He would also put some of his strongest armies together as bands of mercenaries, which, they would go around doing missions, thus bringing in money, but they would also be bringing in extra connections with other planets. So, this would basically be free advertising about the benefits of his empire to some degree. After seeing how his empire is doing, he would be pleased with this, and perhaps, just maybe, he enjoyed seeing his people content for a change. Though, as his empire continues growing, he will come to the realization that it is doing better than it ever was financially. Though, strength-wise, it would be worse than it ever was. There were many planets that used to be in the empire that rebelled and deserted completely, as they didn't stick around to see how King Cold's empire changed for the better. This is also in combination with many planets having been taken by Cooler, who is still a thorn in his side. Some planets still stayed loyal to him, such as planets that contain the races from the Ginyu Force, as they seemed extremely loyal to Frieza when he was alive, which because of this, The current elite soldier of King Cold would be Banyu, who would be pleased to see how the Empire is changing. Which, if she is one of the only elite soldiers left, odds are she would have ended up working with King Cold quite often. So, over time, he would begin to rely on her advice more and more. So, to eventually reward her for her help, he would likely promote her to be his second in command, like how Frieza had Zarbon and Dodoria. Anyway, since the Empire is doing worse than it ever was in terms of strength, Banyu suggested King Cold that maybe they should try to get the Saiyans to join his empire. As the Super Saiyans were of exemplary power, they could be a good asset to have on the side. It's a long shot of this happening, but the worst that can happen is that they'll say no, as he doesn't believe the one called Goku will kill him. King Cold, being very intelligent, would know that it would take a lot for this planet to agree to join him, so he decides to travel to Earth personally to have a straight-up business meeting with the Dragon Team. Along with him and Banyu, he would have brought a noticeable number of resources as a gift of sorts, mainly just to get negotiations started. To King Cold, this would be a formal ordeal, whereas the Dragon Team would take it as a far more casual conversation, so it would likely end up as a hilarious ordeal, especially when taking into consideration how useful Goku would be in a meeting like this. Which, Vegeta and Goku would have been reluctant when it comes to trusting King Cold, but after seeing the gift, they wouldn't know what to do with these resources. So, reluctantly, Vegeta would bring them, along with King Cold and Banyu, over to Capsule Corp, and surely Bulma would know what to do with them. Bulma would realize the resources he gifted would be of great use to them, such as improving Vegeta's gravity chamber to a greater extent, while also improving their spaceships to a far greater extent as well. So, Capsule Corp, and by extension Bulma, would take over the reins on the business side. At some point in the meeting, Bulma would show him around Capsule Corp, which is when he would be able to see the use of the company's namesake, capsules. This would blow him away, as he could have things like a whole outpost in his pocket, or even weeks, maybe even months' supply of food in a tiny capsule. So this would be a great use to his empire. There would be a huge card in the negotiations for the Dragon Team and the Earth, which, this means King Cold would have to agree to some heavy terms to be able to establish a connection with this planet. In the end, Cold and Bulma would eventually form some type of agreement, with the Empire providing the Earth with the same benefits as the rest of the Empire. So, this means they get access to protection and help by his forces if they needed it, along with supplies from the Empire, in exchange for capsules and help from the Dragon Team. This deal, of course, is also open to being changed in the future, if they ever want to add more into it or cancel the deal for some reason, even though that's unlikely, as it's a major benefit for both sides, and there aren't really any downsides to it. Also included in the deal, at Goku's request, is that a way to communicate directly with Cold and his empire would be established with the Earth. Goku would mainly request this as his fight with Frieza on Namek would have given him quite the itch for otherworldly combat, since, clearly, beings on these other planets were so much stronger, so if he didn't get to hear about or fight them, that would really get him down. So, since they agreed to join the Monarch's empire, they'd have to go to King Furry and get this plan officially set up, since he is the ruler of Earth. Though, since Goku would go with King Cold for this meeting, he'd likely agree since he would know about Goku saving the Earth from King Piccolo, and would see this as his way of paying him back. After this, King Cold and Banyu would mention that they have something to discuss with the Earthlings, so Bulma would gather the Dragon Team and have a conference room prepared for them at Capsule Corp. After everyone is gathered, they all go to this conference room together and have the doors shut behind them. Once inside, King Cold would start to explain the current threat his empire is facing at the hands of his other son, Cooler. As part of their agreement, he would request the aid of the Dragon Team in fighting this menace. Of course, without considering the potential danger they'll face, Goku would agree to this as he still has that itch of wanting to fight otherworldly beings. The others would have agreed to help anyway even if Goku didn't jump in. The discussions about a plan to attack Cooler begin right away, as sooner would be better in this case. We start this part in November of age 766 as an important meeting is happening on Earth within the conference rooms of Capsule Corp. On one side, we have an ex-tyrant of the king and his right-hand woman, while on the other side we have the defenders of Earth. As of now, they are trying to come up with a plan to take down the king's son, Cooler, as he is a threat to the now trade, tourism, and culture-based empire of King Cold. If Cooler were to succeed, it would likely cause the newly reformed Cold Empire to either shatter or be taken over and forced to join Cooler's forces. As of right now, Cooler's empire and army is much like Frieza's used to be. Everyone only serves him out of fear and his army is generally weak but grand in number. On the other hand, however, Cold's army is quite powerful and even grander in number, thanks to the many capsules supplied from Capsule Corp along with the high morale of his armies. When Cooler hears how his father's empire is being run now and what his father is doing, the thought would sicken him. He would see his father becoming good as a disgrace to their family and believe himself to be the rightful ruler for the entire empire. A major thing they come up with during this meeting as part of the plan had to do with planets like Namek and Yardrat. While hesitant at first since it's King Cold, these planets would join the Empire after Goku reassures them it's safe to. Though this isn't all that caused him to join, the Namekians have been hearing stories about Frieza's father and his new empire that was formed on trust and collaboration instead of on fear and forced cooperation. Basically, the tyrant's father is fixing the mistakes of his son, and now trying to fix the mistakes of his other son. They'd support that, to some degree. Though it's unlikely that the Namekians would allow King Cold to use the Dragon Balls, though King Cold would likely not have even requested that aid from them. He would have noted it as being far too soon for them to have that level of trust. Which to him is understandable. He basically only just started his new empire just shy of 2 years ago, and it will take a while to make amends for everything he and his sons caused in the past. But this is a step in the right direction. As for the people of Yardrat, they would agree with the plan, but just request that Cold doesn't send masses upon masses of troops to the planet to be trained. They request only his finest be sent when they wish to develop their mind and spirit. However, they would potentially refuse training his men until Cold himself trains with them. Their main reason for this is that if Cold is going to put his men through the Yardratian training, he should see for himself what they will be going through first. So, since Cold will be busy with the battle against Cooler, Yardrat does join the Empire, but doesn't start training his men right away. However, he will be back after Cooler is taken care of since he will have a little more time. Anyway, this would lead to special divisions being made in King Cold's army, with him having techniques and races from other planets. So, after King Cold's army and empire is expanded with more of these men, they go back to the drawing boards of how they will take down Cooler. Now that King Cold is more about cooperating with the people in his empire, he would make this meeting an empire-wide broadcast for everyone to have their say in it. Eventually, they would come up with the plan of attacking Cooler head-on at its base planet, since there isn't really a better option than dealing with the problem at the source. Also, they're confident that they can get through any henchmen protecting the planet since the intel King Cold has said Cooler's army is fairly weak, just big in number. The Namekian divisions would be some of the finest divisions in Cold's numbers. Once the invasion of Cooler's base planet starts, they'll easily be able to dispatch groups upon groups of the Cooler force. While Cold's army is dispatching groups of Cooler's armies, the Dragon Team would be doing the same. Think of it like how it was during Resurrection F, with each of the Earthlings taking on many people at once. Though, eventually, after many of them are taken out, Cooler's armored squadron would show up to take on the Dragon Team. So, while Cold's army is taking on the regular henchmen, the Dragon Team handles the armored squadron quite easily. Since Banyu is King Cold's right-hand woman and was strong enough to be in the Ginyu Force, she would be able to take them on. So it would mainly be Banyu and Piccolo taking on Salza, Gohan and Krillin taking on Dor, and Tien and Yamcha would fight Naze. All of Cooler's armored squadron would easily be taken care of quickly, which leaves only the main fight left. Now they all head to where Cooler is, with King Cold himself suggesting he take Cooler on first, as it's his responsibility. Their fight starts off with Cold still in his second form and with Cooler in his fourth form, which, of course, King Cold would be falling behind in just his second form, so he would transform to his third form and continue the fight. However, I do believe once Cooler taps into the full power of his fourth form, Cold would be pushed to transform to his final form as well. At this point though, when Cold does tap into his full power, he would have the advantage over Cooler. We've never seen Cold in these forms, so it's all speculation, but a lot of the power scaling I've seen put second form Cold slightly above what full power Frieza's power on Namek was, so his fourth form would be quite powerful in comparison to Cooler in his fourth form. This leads Cooler to reveal the ace up his sleeve, his fifth form which even King Cold didn't know about. So, unfortunately for Cold, this is bad news for him. With all the business of maintaining his nearly reformed empire, he hasn't had time to train. So, King Cold starts to get beaten down a lot here, which leads to Vegeta stepping in. Even though he likes seeing a member of Frieza's family getting beaten down, Cooler is the threat here, not Cold. Originally Goku was going to step in, but Vegeta would stop him, as he wishes to get revenge against a member of Frieza's family. Goku already stole the enjoyment of defeating one of the tyrants, that being Frieza, so he isn't going to let him do it again. Though as he steps in to aid Cold, he's quickly beaten into the ground. He isn't a Super Saiyan yet, so his base form basically changes nothing in this fight. This anger from getting beaten down from a member of Frieza's family while trying to help another member of Frieza's family, combined with both Kakarot and the mysterious warrior stealing the catharsis of ending Frieza away from him, would add fuel to his growing rage. Also, adding to this anger, would have been a low-class warrior like Kakarot being the one to become the Super Saiyan legend instead of him, the Prince of the Saiyans. This becomes enough of a catalyst for something to bubble up within the Prince. After enough of his anger builds and finally boils over, we see lightning start to strike in the background and around Vegeta. The ground then starts to shake beneath Vegeta's feet, eventually cracking and crumbling with the cracked ground and floating up into the air around him. As lightning continues to flash in the sky, Vegeta's hair starts to flash between its usual black to a bright yellow. Cooler, of course, has no idea what's going on and just watches it all like Frieza did when Goku transformed, though everyone else, even King Cold, figured out what was happening to Vegeta. As the lightning strikes get closer and closer, Vegeta's anger fully bubbles over, with his hair now fully being yellow. He has become the Super Saiyan, for which he turns his piercing gaze back towards Cooler. As Vegeta starts his fight with Cooler, the Earthlings are just left to watch. Since King Cold is in bad shape now, Krillin brings him a Sensu Beam, which, after taking it, the beam kind of blows the king away like the castles did earlier. Though that's something to keep in mind for later, as now isn't the time to worry about it. King Cold jumps back into the fight against Cooler. With Cooler now facing both his father and his Super Saiyan Vegeta, he stands no chance against the two warriors. Normally at this point Cooler would try to use his Supernova like he did in his movie to take out his enemy, since he would survive the planet exploding. But he can't get a moment in to even charge the attack. After Cooler is basically beaten to a pulp for a while, he falls out of his fifth form, as he no longer has the strength to be able to maintain it. King Cold would try to offer his son mercy here like Trunks did to him, saying he became much better off for it. Not only did he start becoming a better person, but his empire is also doing much better than it ever has because of the way it is managed now. Though, Cooler would refuse this offer of peace, saying King Cold has grown soft and is a disgrace to their family. With Cooler refusing the offer, this is where Vegeta gets the moment he's been waiting his whole life for. He walks up to Cooler like he did to Frieza in the Resurrection F movie, but this time he finishes him off instead of letting Cooler blow up the planet beneath them. Shortly after Vegeta kills Cooler, he falls out of the Super Saiyan form and passes out from the strain it had on his body. So, the Earthlings take Vegeta back to King Cold's ship since they just went with Cold on his ship to get there and place him in a healing pod. Now that the Dragon Team helped King Cold take down Cooler, he keeps his word and pledges to lend his aid to the Earthlings when he can. He will do this by sending things like simple supplies and training aids to sending some of his squads, elites, or even come there himself along with Banyu to assist them with any threat they have. Mainly, he keeps his word about coming to help with the android threat, which is only slightly less than a year away now. With Cooler defeated now, his previous empire is on the edge of completely shattering. They would only have two options, one being to just leave the empire, as they would have no leader now, which basically means they lose the benefits of being in the empire. The other option would be to join King Cold's empire, which could be likely after they hear about how Cold's empire is run now. They either lose the protection of the empire, and risk being taken over or wiped out by another alien race in the future, or they could join King Cold's reformed empire, which just would give them more freedom than they used to have under Cooler, and they still get the protection, supplies, and support of the empire. After arriving back on Earth, before King Cold and Banyu leave, Goku would urge them to train, so that King Cold could become a stronger leader, and that Banyu could become a better right-hand woman. He isn't only urging King Cold to train because of the android threat, but also so King Cold could fight anyone that tried to challenge his position fair and square with his own power. Also, knowing Goku, he would also be urging them to train so he could have other strong training partners in the future. These reasons would make sense to the monarch, so he agrees to train to help the Earthlings with the upcoming android threat. Cold would decide to take up the offer the Yardratians gave him earlier, as he wanted to be available for his men eventually, though not only does he want to train with the Yardratians, but he also has another goal in mind to receive from his training as well. The form he's seen Cooler use against both him and Vegeta would pique his interest, which he thinks if his son could achieve it, why couldn't he do it as well? So, besides just training with the Yardratians, he makes obtaining the fifth form his goal as well. So, he doesn't stay on Earth to train, instead he obviously has his men set the course for Yardrat. Right before he leaves, he promises to come back to be there with them on the day the androids are supposed to appear. As for his empire, he figured while he trains on Yardrat, he can have some of his men that he trusts handle his business for him. While he can't physically go and help him, he will still provide his input when they need him to, though he might also just do brief broadcasts to the planets that require his assistance when he is able to. When he lands on Yardrat, Kibara is happy to see Cold manage to make time to come and train with him. He was mainly happy because he thinks his training could further help the Monarch down his path of becoming good. Also, Cold would convince Kibara to train Banyu as well. He's still technically following the condition that he must go through the training before they train his men. He's just having Kibara train Banyu at the same time. As for the heroes of Earth, after King Cold and Banyu do leave the planet, they go back to their training for the android threat, which is only about 6 months away. We open in the Northern Wastelands in age 764, as a galactic tyrant and his father land on Earth to get revenge against a certain monkey. However, when they arrive, they send out their henchmen to find this monkey, but they can't, and return empty-handed. The heroes of Earth were there but were hiding their energy to see what this tyrant, which is obviously Frieza, would do. Out of anger of not finding him, Frieza gives the order for his men to terrorize the planet to draw the monkey out. Before his men can even take off to follow this order, Frieza's wish is granted. Goku, who has been watching what was going on with the help of King Kai, now stands in front of Frieza's men via the use of instant transmission. The tyrant then orders these men to attack Goku, but they are effortlessly taken out by him, without even needing to go Super Saiyan. Frieza's anger would just bubble up at this and go against the plan he had with King Cold, with him just rising up and charging a Death Ball, launching it at Goku shortly after. Goku would catch it in his hands at first, but eventually be pushed back down to the earth. From there, he would fire a Kamehameha into it, launching it back to where it hits into Frieza. Much like how Cooler died in his first movie, the Kamehameha and Death Ball pushes Frieza into the sun, where he perishes for good this time. King Cold, having watched this all, approaches Goku with the offer of him taking Frieza's place as his heir in his empire. Of course, Goku would refuse this offer, which would anger the king. He would go on to say that he only defeated his son because of that technique he used, and wouldn't have been able to do so without it. Goku, being who he is, would agree not to use the Kamehameha in their fight, and then the fight with King Cold would begin. Goku would easily block all of King Cold's attacks, and just blast him in the chest with a simple ki blast, since he agreed not to use the Kamehameha. As King Cold is now against the mountain with a hole through his chest, he goes through the same things he did with future Trunks. He starts with offering a planet, then a solar system, and then to change his ways. This would pique Goku's interest and ask if he was serious, to which the wounded monarch would of course agree. Goku would decide to let him go, but warn him if it's a trick like his son tried on Namek, he will kill him. King Cold, being smarter than the son, would head back to his ship and take off. Vegeta of course would try blasting down the ship to kill King Cold, but Goku stops him quickly, saying he deserves a chance just as much as Vegeta did during their fight. This timeline then goes much the same as the previous two parts, with King Cold coming out of the healing pod to find his empire in shambles. It is on the verge of collapse as word of his son's demise and his defeat is being spread around the empire, so planets are just rebelling and leaving his empire. He is essentially driven to the same desperate decision he had to make in the first part, which is granting more freedom and amenities to the planets within his empire. As explained before, with the rebelling planets having new freedoms, the revolts ended and production on these planets started to skyrocket. So, he decides to give these new freedoms not just to revolting planets, but to his whole empire as well. He does this not just because his empire is doing better, but maybe, for once, he likes seeing his men content for a change. As King Cold's empire continues to grow, he still comes to the same realization that while his empire is doing better financially, strength-wise it is worse than it ever was. There are some planets that rebelled and deserted completely, with him not sticking around to see how King Cold's empire changed for the better. So, he decides to work on expanding his empire again to get stronger people within his army. He'd also still end up promoting Banyu to his right-hand woman to help him with running his empire. An idea that sticks out to him would be going to Earth to try and get the Saiyans to join his empire. While it's a long shot on this happening, the worst that can happen is that he will say no. Of course, when King Cold and Banyu arrive, everyone including Goku is wary that he is just coming back for revenge. Vegeta would most likely try to go after Cold, but Goku would quickly stop him, still telling him to give Cold a chance, which leads the monarch to assure he is there on business and presents the gift he brought with him. As usual, none of them would know what to do with these materials and supplies, so Vegeta suggests they bring it to Capsule Corp. Once there, the meeting is taken over by Bulma, and the negotiations for the agreement are mainly decided between her and King Cold. His interest would still be piqued by the capsules when he sees them, so, when he came to the agreement, in return for supplies and help from the Empire with any threats they face, they will provide the capsules and help him when the Empire is facing a threat that would require their assistance in taking down. From there, King Cold goes and has a meeting with King Furry for this agreement to be officially made, for the planet to join his empire. As usual and as explained before, he would agree once finding out Goku and the others are in favor of this agreement going through. From there, King Cold would still set up the way to communicate with each other, and at Goku's request, swear to tell them when any threat he needs assistance with appears. Once the situation with Cooler starts happening, King Cold arrives on Earth to try and devise a plan along with the Dragon Team on how to deal with Cooler. However, this is when the news is told to King Cold and Banyu that Goku has fallen ill. He started clutching his chest one day and has been bedridden ever since. King Cold would send his best doctors he had on his ship to try and help Goku, but even they can't figure out what it is. Even if they could, it would be too late for them to develop a cure for the heart virus. King Cold sticks around on Earth to keep trying to help Goku, but unfortunately, it's no use. A couple days later we would then get a similar scene as we did in the Future Trunks special, with Gohan running back to his house. However, this time in the crowd outside of their house, King Cold and Banyu would be there as well. Though, once he reaches Goku's room, the news is told to him with Krillin telling the others. The Earth's greatest warrior, Goku, has succumbed to the heart virus. Unfortunately, with it being natural causes. He can't be revived with the Dragon Balls this time. With Goku now gone, King Cold wasn't sure what would happen with their agreement, as Goku was the main one supporting it. However, the Dragon Team would keep the agreement in place, as it's one of the last things Goku wanted to do. They would also go through with helping King Cold with Cooler, as it was something Goku would have wanted. That whole fighting plan goes the same as it did in the last part. However, the Yardratians and the Namekians went and joined Cold's empire, as Goku is gone. The Yardratians would have only agreed at Goku's request. No one can find New Namek as only King Kai knows where it is, and Goku is the only one who knew how to contact him. Regardless, Vegeta goes Super Saiyan together with King Cold to take down Cooler. Before Cooler was taken out, King Cold would still likely offer Cooler to join him, as they can be much better rulers if he does it the new way King Cold tried out. Though, as usual, Cooler thinks this is a disgraceful thing for his family to have stooped to and refuses, which leads to Vegeta finally getting a win and offing Cooler once and for all. With the defeat of Cooler happening, his empire is still in shambles, as the planets in his organization are left leaderless. Even the ones that left King Cold's empire and were forced into Cooler's would be in a rough place, as they went through the control of 2 tyrants in a short span of time. Their only options would be like the ones in the regular timeline, to either go on being alone or rejoin with the newly reformed Cold Empire, which because of the benefits of joining the Empire again, is the most likely choice they will make, though if King Cold wasn't mostly reformed, it's highly unlikely they would have rejoined his empire. Afterwards, at the request of Gohan, as they now have lost their greatest warrior, King Cold would stay on Earth to help protect it in case anything happened. He wouldn't be able to be as hands-on in his empire though, so he would send people he trusted to take care of matters. He would personally only go somewhere if he absolutely had to. He would also have decided to follow through on one of the last things Goku asked of him, which would have been to train, with him training alongside Banyu. After seeing Cooler's 5th form, he would train to unlock that form for himself. Gohan might potentially train with King Cold as well, as he was the one that requested him to stay. Gohan might learn a technique or two from him like the Death Beam and be slightly stronger from this extra training partner. Though, in the long run, it wouldn't really change anything in the ongoing struggle against the future androids. However, Gohan might have passed these techniques on to future Trunks as well, but even then, it doesn't really change anything. Around the time of the android attack, King Cold still hasn't achieved the 5th form like he set out to do. Anyway, on May 12th, age 767, androids 17 and 18 still arrive and begin their onslaught after killing Dr. Gero. Piccolo is the first one that tries fighting against them, however he falls at their hands, which takes Kami with him. Unfortunately, it also means they can no longer use the Dragon Balls anymore either. Vegeta is the next one to face against the threat, but even with his Super Saiyan power, he doesn't stand a chance. Next, King Cold tries to attack him, and he stands up against him for a little bit when he uses his full power. However, they slowly get bored of fighting the Monarch and off him as well. Any of King Cold's elites and soldiers that were present on the planet would have been wiped out as well. This includes Banyu. She would have tried to fight the androids at the same time as King Cold, so that it was a 2-on-2 fight. But this is in vain, as she is killed at the hands of the androids too. It's also likely King Cold's ship would have been destroyed by the androids, so they can't use it to try and get help from the remnants of Cold's empire. After the fall of King Cold, the rest of the fighters basically have no chance against the androids, but they still try to fight against them, no matter how pointless it is. Yamcha is the next warrior to try his luck at fighting the cyborg duo, but he is slain as well. Tien goes against him next, but as expected, he also falls at the hands of the androids. Then Goku's best friend, Krillin, would be the one to fall in the onslaught against the androids. Lastly, and probably the least expected one to stand up against the androids, was Shatsu, who is mercilessly killed as well. Now the rest of the future timeline up until Trunks goes to the past would be the same as in the actual timeline. Gohan would still be the one training Trunks, with him still losing an arm from one of the fights against the androids. Then, of course, Gohan would still fall at the hands of the androids. This would still have been the catalyst for Trunks to go Super Saiyan for the first time. Eventually the time machine is still developed, and Trunks uses it to go back in time, and that would be the Trunks we had seen in the part 1 of this timeline. This Trunks is basically in no way different than the future Trunks we know, just the timeline he comes from is slightly different. Something worth mentioning is what would have happened to King Cold's empire after he was killed by the androids. Simply put, his empire would just shatter and cease to exist. There would be no ruler left that could take over, as Frieza and Cooler are both dead. Most likely there would be 3 separate factions remaining, one for Cold, one for Frieza, and one for Cooler, with each trying to revive their previous leader. However, the Dragon Balls on Earth being gone, and no one knowing where New Namek is, and the Super Dragon Balls obviously being out of the question, none of them are ever revived. With the Empire collapsing, this would obviously mean the Earth is no longer getting supplies from them, which is a negative for the humans, as all these supplies couldn't help with defeating the androids. They could have helped build stronger places they could seek protection in. Also, if it ever reached that point, the supplies would have been able to be used in rebuilding the Earth to how it used to be. Also, as they had communication links between the Empire and Earth, Bulma and Gohan would still try to reach out to the Empire every now and again, not knowing it collapsed. Even after Gohan falls at the hands of the androids, Bulma would still try to get in contact with them, as they would need the help now more than ever. These messages out to the Empire would be to try and get assistance from them, but as time goes on, the hope of getting help slowly fades. Years later, they do eventually get a response from a small remnant of the Cold Force, which tells them, the Cold Empire has been collapsed for years now. It's split into different factions after King Cold died, but most planets just went on their way. So, we can no longer provide help to the people of other planets. It's every man for himself now. I'm sorry. Then after that, I never hear anything over the communication channel with the once great Empire again. It's nothing but complete radio silence, no matter how hard they try to keep contacting them, which, of course, she would eventually realize is pointless to stop trying to contact them. From there, she would focus all her time on building the time machine instead. It's now May 12th, age 767, as the galactic-level Emperor lands on the Earth. With the directions he was given by the Dragon Team, he flies off towards an island that's 9 kilometers southwest of South City. They arrive at their destination at 9:30 AM since the android threat was foretold to appear around 10 AM. As everyone starts to gather around, they all get introduced to Trunks, while Vegeta is nowhere to be seen. Also, in the past 6 months, King Cold and Banyu have indeed gone through their training with T-Bara. He does learn the basics of instant transmission, but since his race seems to have far more potential, he would be able to do this far faster than Goku did. So, he would be able to learn the advanced things of spirit control, such as Force Spirit Fission, while Banyu would only be able to learn the basics of instant transmission. Also, through the spirit control parts of it, a lot of his ego and overconfidence are mellowed out. Unfortunately, he wouldn't have much free time, so he wouldn't be able to work towards trying to unlock the 5th form he's seen Cooler use, though he'll likely still keep trying for it after he leaves Planet Yardrat, since he now knows there's a power beyond his current final form. Anyway, when he left, he would have a clear mind and the Yardratians would have agreed to join his empire. Anyway, Yajirobe does show up and gives them the sensor beams, but he is then shot down as usual. When they start to come up with a plan of what to do, King Cold says he'll send some of his elite squadrons down to search the area. Once they find the androids, they'll power up as a signal for them to follow since the heroes can sense ki. Also, King Cold would send another squadron to go and rescue Yajirobe and Bulma, but Gohan would go with the squadron too. The androids are quickly noticed by one of the squadrons, mainly only being noticed once they start to attack people. As they raise their energy, the heroes notice this and quickly fly off towards them. Any soldiers that were injured before the heroes got there were taken by others back to the ships and healing pods, meaning Krillin didn't have to leave or use any sensor beams yet, though this also means they wouldn't have learned about the androids being able to steal energy yet. Once Goku suggests going somewhere where no one is around, Dr. Gero, or Android 20, destroys the city, angering Goku. From there, Goku leads into the southern continent to fight where others aren't around. Once Gohan sees them fly off, he leaves Bulma and Yajirobe to follow them. Once arriving there, Tien picks up on Goku being winded even though nothing happened yet, but Goku still shows off Super Saiyan, since the androids have never seen it. Afterwards, the fight with Android 19 goes basically the exact same, but the heroes don't realize their energy absorbing technique until they see 19 absorb the Kamehameha. At this point, Goku was losing a lot of energy from the heart virus and he started to clutch his chest. After they realize it's the heart virus taking effect, they try to use the sensor beam and even it didn't help. From there, Android 19 starts to absorb his energy, and when the heroes try to step in, Android 20 gets in the way. Piccolo tries to attack Android 20 but is shot down as per usual. So from there, Vegeta flies in and attacks Android 19. Piccolo gets up when he hears that Vegeta is mentioned, with Vegeta kicking Goku to him. Yamcha then offers to take Goku and leaves with him, but Android 20 stops Android 19 from chasing him, saying to save the best for last. King Cold steps in to face Android 20 while Vegeta goes Super Saiyan and starts fighting Android 19, but this time it isn't a surprise as they see him transform against Cooler. Vegeta's fight goes basically the same, with him ripping off 19's hands and blasting him when he runs away, causing his head to roll off. With Android 19 destroyed and Android 20 getting beaten back easily, he starts to think of a way to escape. When he sees an opening, he flees into the nearby mountains and hides from them. King Cold flies off after Android 20, then Vegeta gets his sensu beam from Krillin and does the same, with the rest of the heroes following. Once they start looking for Android 20, he comes up with a plan to ambush Piccolo instead of Vegeta and King Cold because he's the next strongest. Piccolo still speaks to Gohan telepathically and all the heroes fly to Piccolo shortly after, saving him and giving him a sensu beam. Piccolo tells Vegeta to let them fight, which it ends up going much the same, with Piccolo cutting off Android 20's hand. In the meantime, Future Trunks arrives and finds Android 19's remains near where he sent the Dragon Team, and as usual, He's confused about who this android is. Future Trunks then flies to where the heroes are and asks who they're fighting, and informs them that those aren't the right androids. Vegeta still learns that Trunks is his kid by Piccolo shouting his name when he first flies in, and that's when Bulma and Yajirobe start to fly in, and Android 20 sees his chance to escape. He blasts down their ship and Future Trunks rushes over to save them, as Android 20 flees. After saving them and as Vegeta was about to chase Android 20, Future Trunks flies in and asks Vegeta why he didn't save his wife or kid. Vegeta then says he has no interest in them and flies off, leaving the future warrior dumbfounded. Bulma reveals Android 20 is Dr. Gero and explains where she thinks his laboratory is, so they can go on the search for it. Future Trunks also explains what the androids look like, so they don't make the same mistake. Vegeta then flies off to go find these androids to fight them, since he said the ones they fought are boring. Future Trunks would chase him down as normal, and Piccolo would tell Gohan to take Bulma and Trunks to his house, which he would comply and fly off with them. After Krillin, Tien, Piccolo, and Banyu take off to search for the laboratory, this is where King Cold would step in. He would use his instant transmission to teleport in front of Vegeta and slam him into the ground. Of course, this would anger Vegeta, and he would quickly come back up and start fighting with the Monarch. While this fight is going on, Future Trunks would just be there for a minute watching, until King Cold finally shouts at him, "What are you doing? Go help find the laboratory while I hold Vegeta off." To which Future Trunks would hurry and fly off to search for the lab, while King Cold transforms into his third form to fight Vegeta. Even in his third form, he is still behind Vegeta in power. Vegeta being who he is would allow King Cold to transform into his fourth form, which this is his last form as of right now. This would close the gap in their power by a large amount, with Vegeta still seemingly having the advantage. After this fight goes on for a little bit and Vegeta starts to get bored, as a last resort King Cold would say he hasn't used all his power yet. The Saiyan Prince would, of course, play along with this and allow King Cold to use his full power. King Cold starts to power up, eventually stopping once he unleashes his full power. Normally, this final form would lose to his Super Saiyan, but there's two major things to point out. King Cold was far stronger than both of his sons in this form, so he would at least be the level of a Super Saiyan in it. Also, his power would have grown exponentially because of his training on Yardrat, which is something Vegeta wouldn't know about. Vegeta would of course still be his overly cocky self and say something along the lines of, "No matter how much you power up, you'll still be no match for me. Your son had a form beyond that, and he was still no match for me once I became a Super Saiyan." This cockiness doesn't last long though, as King Cold immediately grabs him by the head and slams him into the nearest mountain. With King Cold now using his full power to fight Vegeta, he has the advantage over the Prince, even when he is a Super Saiyan. As the fight goes on and Vegeta is continuously being beaten, he would just keep getting angrier and angrier. The angrier he gets, the more blinded by his rage he becomes, and he starts fighting sloppier. Meanwhile, Krillin, Tien, Piccolo, and Banyu would decide to split up to find Dr. Gero's lab, and if one of them finds it, they will raise their ki to let the others know. The four split the senzu beans between each other and then split up. Krillin then spots Android 20 as he was going into his lab. When the android notices this, he just brushes it off, saying, "It's just Krillin, he can't do anything." Which, of course, as per the android is wrong, and Krillin raises his ki quickly to alert the other members of the Dragon Team. Piccolo, Tien, Banyu, and Future Trunks all arrive relatively fast to Krillin's location and land outside the entrance of the lab. Back at the fight between the Galactic Monarch and the Saiyan Prince, Vegeta is getting pummeled. King Cold would most likely have learned to sense ki on Yardrat, so once he notices a spike in Krillin's ki, he would think something is going wrong. So, he would tell the Prince, "This has been fun, Vegeta, but it's clear you stand no chance against me anymore." To which he would then quickly knock the Prince out and just throw him down on the ground to his side. Afterwards, he would race off to where Krillin's ki is, and he would land alongside the rest of the heroes. On the other side of the door to the laboratory, Dr. Gero released Android 17 first and then Android 18. Gero gives them the command to take care of Goku's allies, but once they notice the shutdown remote in his hand, Android 17 quickly takes it and smashes it. Around this time is when the heroes realize they're too late and Piccolo blasts down the door. Once the androids go to release Android 16, Dr. Gero starts to protest, so Android 17 stabs him through the chest with his arm, kicks off his head, and crushes it mercilessly. Future Trunks tries to blast him and stop them from awakening 16, but it doesn't work as the lab was destroyed but his capsule was unharmed. Android 16 then awakens and exits his pod, where Android 17 and 18 start to question him, though they don't get an answer out of the giant android until they ask if his goal is to kill Goku, which, of course, Android 16 would reply yes, and even though Android 17 and 18 hated Gero, they agree they at least need a goal and decide to go to kill Goku. Meanwhile, as the heroes watches, they start to question if this is Android 16 and how strong he is, to which Future Trunks would tell them he has no clue. These androids never appeared in his timeline. Vegeta would have woken up at this point, not being knocked out for long, and flew to where the other heroes are. He would basically arrive just in time to see the androids take off. Krillin would realize they're heading towards Goku's house, which he would share with the others. Vegeta, of course, would still get mad at seeing the androids flee to find Goku when he is right there. He would tell King Cold something along the lines of "I'll deal with you later," then fly off in the direction of the androids. Trunks would try to intervene, saying they must wait for Goku. Vegeta would still inform future Trunks he hates Goku more than he does the androids, then punches him in the gut, and flies off after the android trio. Android 17 still lands on the road to try and find a vehicle as well. They also learn here that unlike them, Android 16 is completely man-made, meaning he doesn't have a human base like Android 17 and 18 does. Shortly after, Vegeta lands on the road and challenges them to a fight. They suggest Android 16 to fight the Prince to see what he can do. The gentle giant refuses, so Android 18 steps up to take him on instead. As the fight between the two starts, the other heroes appear with King Cold and Banyu, because of the help of their instant transmission. When Vegeta's fight with Android 18 begins, it would go much the same, as he wouldn't stand a chance against the android. Though, having just been beat by King Cold, he might do a little worse in this fight, since the battle with Cold would have used some of his energy. When he is eventually knocked away by Android 18, this is when King Cold teleports in with the other heroes. Vegeta still ends up fighting with Android 18 again, but this time, King Cold would be fighting with Android 17 at the same time. However, they're both beaten easily in this fight, with Vegeta's arm being broken. This still causes Trunks to rush in, with Piccolo and Tien following suit, but they are all beaten down easily by the cybernetic duo. Vegeta and King Cold still try to fight them as well, but they are eventually knocked down again, with Android 18 breaking Vegeta's other arm so he won't get back up. The androids then go to leave, with 17 telling Krillin to give them sensor beams, and tell them if they ever want to play again, they're up for it. Before they leave, Krillin asks them what they want, and they say they're going after Goku, though it isn't because Gero programmed them to, it's because Goku is the strongest on Earth. Regardless, after explaining this, Android 18 still kisses his cheek before they take off to find a vehicle. From there, Krillin gives the heroes the sensu beam, and Vegeta leaves, with Piccolo stopping Trunks from chasing after him. However, Piccolo leaves shortly after as well, with the heroes figuring out he's heading towards the lookout to fuse with Kami. As the heroes all leave, King Cold goes with them, while Piccolo lands up on the lookout. In their discussion, Kami does eventually relent to fusing with Piccolo. However, he has one condition. This condition was to wait and see if the androids were harmful to the planet or not. So, while they wait, in the meantime the three androids go and steal the Lucky Foods van. Also, in the meantime, Tien goes off to meet up with Shatsu, while Trunks, Krillin, King Cold, and Banyu head to Goku's house. With the help of King Cold's men, they would start moving the stuff from Goku's house far faster than they did in the actual timeline. While on the ship, Trunks explains everything as they try to discuss a plan, but when they eventually call Bulma, she still mentions finding the destroyed time machine and faxes a picture of it over to them. So, Trunks, Gohan, King Cold, and Banyu would fly off together to go and check out the time machine. Originally I wasn't sure if King Cold would go, but the time machine is something interesting to him, so I think he would want to check it out. When they arrive there and check out the time machine, Trunks would confirm it's like his time machine since it has Hope written on the side. However, they know it isn't the one he came in since he has his in a capsule. They still find a shell with a strange egg inside the ship, and nearby they find the moldy shell of an insect-like creature. So, they all head off while in the meantime Android 18 steals a new outfit and fights off the police. Up on the lookout, Kami notices something weird. While in her ship, Bulma hears a radio transmission about all contact being lost with Ginger Town, which is by where the time machine was. So, Bulma would call Krillin, who is at Kame House, to tell him to check the news, which is when they see that nothing is left of the people of Ginger Town except their clothing. Though, the TV broadcast eventually cuts out after the reporter hears screaming and is seemingly attacked. Since Kami has been seeing everything that is going on, he finally decides to fuse with Piccolo, which, of course, they still use Piccolo as the host body for the fusion, as Kami said they need a warrior not a god right now. He then flies off and lands in Ginger Town, looking for the monster that was attacking the city. When the creature does show himself, Piccolo tells him to let the man he is holding go, which the monster seemingly complies, but then he drinks the man through his tail. This creature then tells Piccolo he is next, shocking him since he doesn't know how this creature knows who he is. While the creature starts to power up, he claims he is Piccolo's brother, and the heroes notice they feel the keys of Frieza, King Cold, Goku, Piccolo, Vegeta, and more coming from the direction of Ginger Town. Anyway, when Piccolo and the monster start to fight, the androids stop when they notice it, which is when Android 16 says one of the two rivals 17 and 18 in power. Anyway, the fight between the two goes the exact same, with the creature still using the Kamehameha, much to Piccolo's surprise, and he goes on to stab Piccolo's arm and drink it. But when he gets away, Piccolo convinces him to explain who he is before killing him, so he would still go on to explain where he came from, how he was made, and how Dr. Gero got the cells of all the heroes. Anyway, as Trunks, Cold, Krillin, and Banyu arrive, Cell uses a solar flare to be able to escape. Vegeta and Tien then arrive too, with Piccolo going on to explain everything he knows about the monster to them. Vegeta then takes off to go and try to transcend Super Saiyan, while Krillin and Trunks go to look for the lab containing this timeline Cell. Cold and Banyu would go with those two, as he would likely be curious about some of the technology in the lab. Regardless, Piccolo and Tien would stay behind to look around there. While at the lab, they find the blueprints and go on to destroy the lab, before taking off. Trunks will go on to train with Vegeta, while Krillin, Banyu, and Cold take the blueprints to Bulma. In the next 3 days, Cold would train intensely with Banyu, but after these 3 days pass, Goku eventually wakes up. He would then teleport to the heroes who were currently in Bulma's ship. While there, he gets Gohan, explaining that he is going to train in the hyperbolic time chamber. King Cold and Banyu would likely teleport with him to go and tell Vegeta and Trunks about this plan. Vegeta would, of course, agree with his plan and go up with him to the lookout. Once there, Vegeta and Trunks would be the first ones to go into the time chamber, which, in the meantime, androids would end up showing up at Kame House, so Piccolo steps up to take them on, with him starting to fight with Android 17. Gohan was wanting to intervene, but both Goku and Cold would explain they would likely get in the way. While Piccolo is fighting with Android 17, neither seems to have the advantage, so they are going blow for blow with each other. However, while they are fighting, Cell shows up and interrupts their battle. Piccolo would warn 17 to stay away from the creature, as it is trying to absorb him. 17 doesn't listen to 16 telling him to run, so when he tries to attack Cell, Piccolo joins in on the attack. He then shoots Piccolo through the chest and tosses him to the side, before approaching the androids. Before he can absorb 17, Android 16 intervenes and starts to fight with the bug monster. He'd try to drink Android 16 but can't since he's fully mechanical, but as their fight goes on he seemingly wins. However, Cell still rises out of the crater and catches 17 off guard, absorbing him after he transforms into a semi-perfect form. Android 16 tries to fight with him again, however, he blasts Android 16 away and goes on to face Android 18. Though, as she threatens to blow herself up, Cell starts to use 17's voice to trick her, but she doesn't fall for it. Before he can get the chance to absorb her by force, Tien intervenes and starts to use the Neo Tri-Beam to hold him in place. While Tien is keeping Cell stuck there, Android 16 and Android 18 flees if she isn't absorbed. Tien still eventually passes out from using this too much, causing Cell to go to try and kill him. Up on the lookout, Goku is going to use the instant transmission to save him. However, Cold stops him and says to let him go. He has a plan to try and take down Cell. So, he and Banyu arrive in front of Tien, surprising Cell since he didn't know how they got there. Regardless, instead of just taking Tien and Piccolo and leaving like Goku normally did, he has Banyu teleport them to the lookout. Cell would be curious about what he is doing, and would be cocky as King Cold goes to challenge him to a fight. In the past 3 days, King Cold would have been training intensely to surpass his final form, since he knew about Vegeta going to try to surpass Super Saiyan. However, he was already on the cusp of achieving the 5th form, so it's likely he could have achieved this form in these 3 days of intense training. This race also has far more potential than the Saiyans, so I don't think this is too crazy for Cold to be able to achieve, as Frieza achieved the Golden form after 4 months of training, and King Cold has already been training for 3 years at this point. Again, it's hard to say how strong King Cold would be, but I personally think he was way stronger than his sons, so, in his final form, he's at least the level of a grade 1 Super Saiyan, and he most likely is stronger than one, which, when he goes into his 5th form, I think he could be comparative in power to the Super Saiyan 2. Anyway, when the fight starts, he would be in his 4th form, as he starts to fight with Cell. Since he is in a semi-perfect form, he would easily be beating down Cold while he is in this form, though King Cold would eventually decide to show off the power he has unlocked in these 3 days. As he starts to transform, the water around him would start to grow wild and splash up against the bank of the island. Cold would start to get larger and more monstrous in appearance as he gets taller and bulkier. Spikes would grow from his head, as his eyes also turn into a deep shade of red. Since he is now in a form comparative to the Super Saiyan 2 in power, he would put his plan into action, which, this plan is to use some of the techniques he learned on Yardrat. Before he uses them, however, he would start to beat down on Cell to potentially weaken him. While they are fighting, it is possible Android 16 and 18 would have turned around to watch the fight, though they keep their distance in case Cell tries any tricks, but he can't get a moment in edgewise to even throw a hit at Cold. As his fight drags on, the more hits Cell takes, the weaker he gets. Eventually, when Cold thinks he is weakened enough, he uses the Force Spirit Fission on him. This would separate Android 17 from Cell, with Cold moving 17 safely to the side while Cell reverts to his imperfect form. Cell didn't stand a chance in his semi-perfect form, so he does not stand even a sliver of a chance when in his imperfect form. Also, 16 and 18 would likely come back to the battlefield when they see 17 was separated from Cell. While 18 goes on to check on 17, 16 would eventually join in the fight, so Cell is being beaten down from both King Cold and number 16. Eventually, they would decide to finish Cell off, with him using a combined blast against the bug monster. King Cold would use a Supernova type blast, while Android 16 uses his Hell's Flash against Cell. Even Android 18 would join in, using a Ki blast of her own against Cell, with 17 joining in too when he can get up. It is hard to kill Cell, but I do think this combined blast of the 3 androids along with the Monarch's attack could kill the monster. After Cell is gone, the androids would all land along with Cold, as he drops down to his 4th form. I don't think he would have trained it enough yet to be able to maintain the 5th form without strain, so he decides to revert to his 4th form. While they are resting, Krillin would still land out near where they are, since he got the remote from Bulma. He doesn't notice at first, as he goes to deactivate the androids with the remote, not knowing Cell has been defeated. He just assumed Cell fled and suppressed himself, as he didn't notice his ki anymore. Regardless, he drops the remote, causing the androids to notice him. He would crush it as usual, but this time without Cell around to interrupt him. He has time to explain why he did what he did. Regardless, Cold would catch him up on what happened, explaining that the androids helped him in killing Cell. Since Cell was gone, Cold and Krillin would likely get the Dragon Balls, coming back to where the androids were. Krillin would summon Shenron, with him wishing for everyone killed by Cell to be brought back to life. As an explanation for how the Dragon Balls work at this moment, after noticing Cell was killed, Goku would have likely asked Piccolo about the Dragon Balls and still have gotten Dende to bring the dragon back and become the new Guardian of Earth. So Dende would have revived the dragon and they would go and collect the Dragon Balls afterwards. Anyway, Krillin, being who he is, would likely try to wish the androids back to being humans. However, when that doesn't work, he instead wishes for their bombs to be removed from their bodies. They would be confused why he did this, with him still giving the explanation of liking 18 and removing the bombs from their bodies since he thought her and 17 were perfect for each other. This, of course, is where androids 17 and 18 would call him a moron and explain that they are twins. However, before they take off, Krillin offers to take 16 to get repaired by Bulma, which they would likely agree, so Krillin takes them there. Krillin and Bonnie would then return to the lookout, explaining to everyone there that Cell was defeated, and the androids seemingly are good now, so they are being repaired by Bulma and going to leave to live their own lives on Earth. After 16 is repaired, the androids take off, with 18 telling Krillin later before she leaves. When Vegeta and Trunks exit the chamber, he would likely be angry that Cell was defeated when he is filled in on everything that happened, though he might still go back into the time chamber with Trunks for his second day, since he was still wanted to surpass Goku or King Cold. Also, it's likely Goku and Gohan would still go into the time chamber for a day, since he still wanted to train Gohan. Since Cell was defeated, they might even go in there for a second day to try to get Gohan to Super Saiyan 2, as Goku wouldn't have noticed that power is still there, but without Cell there to help Gohan unlock this power, Goku might take him into the chamber for a second day so they can unlock it. Anyway, even King Cold and Bonnie would likely go into the time chamber for their 2 days, with Piccolo going to the time chamber as well after they do. The next day, after having a celebration about the defeat of Cell, Future Trunks returns to his timeline. Everything there goes the same as per usual, and explains to future Bulma about everything that happened in the past. With his newfound power, he easily goes on to defeat the androids within his timeline. As usual, he kills 18 first, with Shock 17, but he is killed shortly after as well. After 3 years passed, they gathered enough fuel for the time machine. Trunks was going to go back to tell everyone about him defeating the androids. However, he still calls out Future Cell, who was going to ambush him, and they fly off the fight a little bit. Though, Trunks still quickly finishes them off, which leaves the future in a time of peace, as Trunks and Bulma set to starting to rebuild everything in their timeline that was destroyed by the android duo. However, in the main timeline, King Cold can go back to his empire. Since there is no known upcoming threat, he can continue expanding and improving his empire in this time of peace. Of course, Bonnie would go back with him, so the two leave the planet and head off into space. He might still come back to Earth sometimes, mainly in cases where Goku wants to train with King Cold. So, by extension, King Cold might end up training with Vegeta too. Since Goku was still alive, he would probably end up training with Goku so he could get stronger. As we had seen between the Cell and Buu sagas in the canon timeline, Vegeta softened a little in this time, which led to him willingly choosing to be controlled by Babidi during the Buu saga. As he softens up, he might start to accept that King Cold has changed over a new leaf, though this would still probably be a long process, especially after everything King Cold and Frieza has done to his race. Regardless, the rivalry between Goku and Vegeta might become a rivalry between King Cold, Goku, and Vegeta, since they would likely all try to at least be at the same level of power as each other, which, at first, Vegeta would be behind since Goku has Super Saiyan 2 already and King Cold has his 5th form, which is as strong as the Super Saiyan 2, but I think he would quickly obtain it. Regardless, sorry about going off on that tangent. So when in space, King Cold would likely try to think about what all he could do to improve his empire. He is always open to finding new planets and incorporating them into his empire, as he would still want to continue growing his empire. After all, a bigger empire means more money and more people for his forces. Also, since the deal with the people of Yardrat was made, he would start to send some of his elite squadrons to go to that planet and train. It's hard to say what squadrons he would send there, but one will likely be a group of warriors from New Namek, since they agreed to join his empire too. The Yardratian training would work well with the peaceful nature of the Namekians, since it is about controlling their spirit, so I think the Namekians would be fine with training there. So, this is likely not canon, but for the sake of this timeline, there is something that was mentioned in the game that will affect this timeline. In the game Dragon Ball Z Supersonic Warriors, it was mentioned that the Ginyu Force was supposed to go to Namek, then to Yardrat, and then go to Metamore, which, because of King Cold having to reform his empire and then train in preparation for the androids, he didn't have time to go there yet, but he knew about the planet. Now, however, he has nothing but time, so he decides it might be worth going to check out that planet. After all, he heard that they had some techniques on that planet that could be useful to his empire. When he arrives, it's hard to say how the Metamorans would react to him, but he would be very cordial. He'd still propose the same deal to them that he does to every planet, that if they join his empire, they will get the protection and support of his empire. This means they would be given access to supplies they need to improve their planet, along with the tourism aspects of his empire being open to their planet if they agreed. Of course, in exchange, they would provide men to his forces, teach him the techniques he heard about, and potentially provide resources from the planet if he thinks he can use them in any way. There isn't really a downside to this proposal, so the Metamoran people would likely agree to it. Since they did agree, King Cold would send some of his men out to start the process of incorporating Metamoran into his empire. This would include things like setting up a way for them to communicate with King Cold and his men in case they ever needed anything. They would also start to discuss constructing buildings, mainly a spaceport, so shipments of supplies can go in and out of the planet, along with a way for tourists to visit. While this is happening, King Cold would discuss with the leader of the Metamorans about being shown the techniques he heard about. Their leader would likely agree, so Cold would bring Banyu with him to this demonstration. Of course, this is where he would be taught the fusion dance, which, unfortunately, he can't use currently since he is in a similar size as Banyu. However, even if he can't use it himself, Banyu could use it, or it could still be taught to his forces, and they could use it if they needed to. He would also think this is a technique Goku and the heroes might want to know about, which would keep up his promise to show him some techniques he learned from space. He was meaning to go to Earth anyway, as he had some proposals in relation to Earth that he wanted to explore. When he arrives, he would go and meet with Goku and Vegeta first, as he wanted to show what he learned to the heroes and had a question for Goku. Goku, of course, would be excited to say the least about getting to learn a new technique, and Vegeta wouldn't mind learning it either, so, with the help of Banyu, Cold would demonstrate to him the fusion dance. He would explain what this does and that he's seen it in action, with him saying it makes the two people combine into an exponentially stronger being, though he would still explain the restrictions to it, which is that the people fusing must be of a similar size and power, which is why he and Banyu didn't combine there. He'd also request Goku to pass his technique on to the other heroes. As much as Vegeta would be reluctant to do the dance, as we've seen before, Goku might be able to convince him to try the fusion to see what it is like. So, we might see Gogeta earlier if the two do test it out, but they might fail the fusion the first 2 times like we've seen in the Broly movie. Regardless, Cold would still start to discuss with Goku some of the things he had questions about. Mainly, he was curious about those beams he's seen Krillin use to heal the heroes before, so Goku would explain that they are sensu beams that are grown by Korin. Cold would likely request Goku to take him to meet this Korin, which I think Goku would, especially since Cold helped out Goku by keeping his promise. Regardless, once Goku, Cold, and Banyu arrive at Korin's tower by being teleported there, Goku would introduce them to each other, which, after introductions and some pleasant conversation, Cold would start to ask Korin about these sensu beams. Korin would explain what they are and that they take a while to grow, so there aren't many of them. However, when Cold asks how to grow them, Korin would probably be reluctant to give away his secrets at first, though at the behest of Goku, and once Cold says he might be able to help figure out how to grow them faster, I think Korin would relent. So, Korin would show Cold the process of growing sensu beans, which Cold would have his men keep extensive notes on this so he could replicate it. After getting some of the seeds for the planet, he would give them to his best scientists along with the notes about the growing process. From there, he would request them to find a way to speed up the growing process, and report back to him once they successfully figure out how to do so. It's hard to tell how long this could take, but I do think his scientists would be able to figure out how to do so. After all, his empire has the best scientists from around the universe. Cold would then go on to thank Korn for showing him how to do this, and he would promise to share the results with him once they find out how to grow the plants faster, which I do think they would be able to achieve this eventually, so he would return to Earth after they did and have his scientists explain the sped up process to Korn. Afterwards, Cold had other business he wanted to attend to on this planet, so both he and Banya would teleport over to Capsule Corporation. Once there, he would request to have a business meeting with Bulma, as he had some ideas he wants to run by her. Mainly, he wanted to discuss the aspects of space travel and tourism within his empire. He would have noticed that many planets he incorporated into his empire didn't have access to space travel yet. Also, his empire's spaceships are good, but he thinks it could be improved as well, since it can still take a while to get to faraway planets. For example, look at the Saiyan pods. It took Vegeta and Nappa a year to be able to reach the Earth back in the Saiyan saga. So, his major idea here would be for his engineers and scientists to work with the ones from Capsule Corp to develop better space travel technology. He would help however he can as well, mainly by providing whatever supplies they need to build these ships. He could try to help with the designing and building process too, though he likely wouldn't be much help with that part, but he'd still try to help. Bulma and Dr. Briefs would help as well, since they would be able to help in the process of designing or building a spaceship too. As they do eventually get new spaceships developed, he would also help have a better spaceport built on the Earth. It's also likely he would have the new technology they found added to his spaceship, or he might have a new spaceship built. After all, the old spaceship he had was the kind associated with Frieza and the way his old empire was ran, so he might get a new ship built since his image has changed, and he wouldn't want to keep something that ties into that old image. These new ships will likely be tested extensively to ensure they're safe first, and after they are, he would introduce this technology across his empire, which, because of this, many places that never had space travel will now have access to it. Also, with faster and better space travel available, the tourism parts of his empire would likely start to boom, mainly because people would now be able to travel to other planets in a far faster and more comfortable trip than they ever could before. They no longer must worry about their trip taking years or months. Instead, it will take days or a week or two at the most, which, that might be seen as a crazy jump in technology, but I think the combined intelligence of Bulma, Dr. Briefs, and the scientists and engineers from across the galaxy would have been able to achieve this. Also, speaking about Bulma, this would help Capsule Corp as well. They would be able to spread their technology across the universe, which of course means more money for Capsule Corp, so they can grow bigger. Then along with growing bigger, they would also get access to other technologies from across the universe, so they would be able to continue to expand and improve and things like that. So, this is a win-win for both sides in this deal. Regardless, after King Cold's business is finished on the Earth, he would return to traveling around the galaxy and working on his empire. However, during his travels, he is eventually contacted by a strange ship that's unknown to him, which, on the other ship, is the Galactic Patrol, since they would have been tracking what King Cold is doing. Eventually, they would have seen he isn't doing things like he has used to, which is ruling with an iron fist. So, they would have been suspicious that he is up to something, so they decided to contact him. I think he would be fine with talking to them, as he knows about the Galactic Patrol, and he might be able to negotiate a deal with them. So, he would come over to their ship, and they would direct him to a room they can sit down and meet in. Mainly, this would be them trying to figure out what he is up to, since they don't completely trust him. He would be completely open with them, though, showing them all the records that his men have kept about what his empire has been doing. This would be a surprise to them, but I think they would start to see he has genuinely turned over a new leaf. They might even ask what caused him to do this, which would lead to him explaining his encounters on Earth that caused him to turn good. Regardless, before he leaves, he would make a proposition with the Galactic Patrol. If they let him continue doing his business across the universe uninterrupted, he will have some of his men help them out. So, for example, if there was a criminal they were trying to catch but they were having difficulty, they could request King Cold or his men to come in and help them. He would use Cooler as an example of this, as he helped take down Cooler, which would have benefited the Galactic Patrol as well, since he was most likely a wanted criminal by them. If this deal is made, in exchange, he gets to continue running his empire with the approval of the Galactic Patrol. I think they would agree to this, since not only would they be getting help from King Cold in doing their job, but they wouldn't have someone as powerful as he is potentially working against them in this case. Which, if they refused, he wouldn't have been working against them, as he is good now, but that's just the thoughts that's going through their mind. So, they would come to an agreement and set up a way that they are able to communicate with each other. Also, within Cold's empire, he would set up a special squadron just for helping the Galactic Patrol. So, they would go to the Galactic Patrol and go through their training, essentially becoming agents of the Galactic Patrol, which, this means they would be going around the universe on patrols for them. Though, when they aren't needed by the Galactic Patrol, they would return and continue to do their duties for King Cold. This would also be a bonus to King Cold, as when they find new planets, they would be able to pass this information on to him. Also, if he wanted to, he might be able to set up an agreement that he takes the prisoners he wants off the hands of the Galactic Patrol, in exchange for him setting up a reform process and putting them through it. So, not only would this help them by reforming previous prisoners to become good guys, but it also strengthens his empire by adding strong fighters to it, which, this would make it a win-win for both sides, so I don't see any reason why the Galactic Patrol wouldn't agree to this process. Anyway, these processes would continue going on in the 7 years between the Cell Saga and the Boo Saga. His Empire and Capsule Corporation would have still been working together to make improvements to their shared technology, such as capsules or spaceships whenever they wanted to. If Bulma or Cold ever had ideas for new projects to test out, they would have helped each other with them. He would have also had a scientist continue to find ways to improve the growing process of sensory beams, which he would share the results with Koran. Also, he would still go to Earth every now and again to train with Goku and Vegeta whenever they requested him to. Lastly, he still would have been incorporating new planets to his empire and expanding his forces by working together with the Galactic Patrol. Basically, when King Cold sees any chance to improve his empire, he jumps on the opportunity, since he is enjoying helping his people and empire continue to prosper now that he has changed his ways. It's been 7 years since Cell was defeated by King Cold. As of right now, we open on Gohan on his way to school. On his way, he still becomes a Super Saiyan and stops a robbery that was taking place. I think he would still meet Videl, though she would still be popular, just not as much as usual, as her father didn't seemingly save the Earth in this timeline. He was only the world champion of the last tournament, so besides that, Hercule isn't as well known either. When Gohan first arrives at the school, they initially think he was the Golden Warrior, but it is quickly dismissed since he isn't blonde. Videl still becomes suspicious of him throughout the day, but when she tries to follow him, he still gets away by hopping on top of a building and using the Flying Nimbus to fly off. He would then go to Capsule Corporation, still asking for Bulma to make him the suit. However, Vegeta doesn't berate him this time. Since Goku was alive, Gohan wouldn't have fell behind on his training in the past 7 years, so there's no reason for Vegeta to berate him for this. Regardless, Gohan still goes and stops the people that are driving recklessly right afterwards. The next day, people were already talking about the Great Saiyaman, but Videl still gets called out of class because of an ongoing robbery. However, Gohan still takes after her, and after transforming into the Great Saiyaman, he helps stop the robbers. But after they are stopped, Videl still tricks him into revealing his identity by asking how he snuck out of class. On the way back, she blackmails Gohan, which in exchange for not revealing his identity, he has to enter the next tournament and teach her how to fly. Gohan then goes to Capsule Corporation to get an outfit he can wear in the tournament. While there, Vegeta says he'll join the tournament as well, with Trunks agreeing to join too. Gohan will then go home and passes on to Goku and Goten, which they both would want to join as well. Gohan then goes on to tell Krillin, Android 18, and Piccolo, while Bulma tells Yamcha, but they don't know where Tien is. Meanwhile, Goku would have contacted King Cold and Banyu, asking them to come participate, which I think King Cold could find the time, since the tournament only lasts for a day. The next day, Gohan and Goten would start to train together, which is when Goten reveals he can go Super Saiyan, though he still finds out Goten can't fly, but this is when Videl shows up, but Gohan still warns him to hide his strength and not turn Super Saiyan. When the training starts and Gohan mentions Ki, this still confuses Videl, so Gohan must start with the basics, as he must show her how to access her Ki first. Regardless, while he continues to train Videl, Goku went up to King Kai's planet to get some last minute training in. Back with Videl, she learns how to float while Goten learns how to fly. She goes to leave and says she'll be back tomorrow, which is when Gohan still gives her the advice to cut her hair short so it doesn't get in the way of her fighting. The next day, while Vegeta was training with Trunks, he also finds out that his son can turn into a Super Saiyan. Anyway, in the next 10 days of training, Videl learns how to fly freely, while everyone else continued training for the tournament, though the only one that didn't train for it was Hercule, as he was cocky that he could win. After King Cold arrives on the Earth, all the heroes head to the tournament together in Bulma's airplane. However, since there wasn't a Cell Games to be broadcasted, they don't have to worry about people having seen them turn Super Saiyan, so they don't have to make the self-imposed limitation about going Super Saiyan. But I still think they would agree to put this limitation in place so that they could all fight on equal terms. Once they arrive, Hercule is still boasting about his strength, while Piccolo asks Gohan if he is really going to fight dressed like the Great Saiyaman. Anyway, they all register for the tournament, with Gohan registering as the Great Saiyaman, while Trunks and Goten get disappointed that they must fight in the Youth Division. As the reporters try to question some of the heroes, Piccolo still gets annoyed and destroys the cameras. Then, when the tournament announcer sees Goku and the others, he is happy to see all of them. This time, as King Cold and Banyu are there are 196 fighters in the preliminaries instead. Though, when Hercule comes out to boast, Piccolo destroys the cameras again, claiming that so Gohan's friends won't find out his secret identity if anything happens and his identity is revealed. While they wait for the main tournament, they all go to watch the youth division, since they have nothing else to do. Hercule still tries to come out and show off, but he ends up falling, though he tries to play it off as him joking. The preliminaries would go the same as usual, with both Goten and Trunks ending up in the finals against each other. Also, as usual, Trunks still ends up being the one to win this match, since he is slightly stronger than Goten. Though, when he goes up against Hercule, he still knocks him out of the ring, with the audience thinking Hercule got knocked out of it on purpose. For the main tournament, Piccolo still ended up giving his name as Ma Jr., to not cause a panic when people hear the name Piccolo. However, there's something to mention here. Since King Cold and Banyu are here, two of the original fighters can't make it to the finals, which, it's hard to say which two wouldn't make it, so I flipped a coin to decide. It came up with Mighty Mask and Jewel losing in the preliminaries to Cold and Banyu. Because of this, Goten and Trunks can't steal Mighty Mask's outfit, so they aren't in the main tournament. Shin would still come over and introduce himself to Goku, though he would also talk with Cold, saying he was glad to see someone like him turned over a new leaf. This confuses the Monarch, but before he can question them about it, they are called to go draw lots for the main tournament. So, after all the lots are drawn, the matches end up like this. Match 1, Krillin vs Pintar. Match 2, Shin vs Ma Jr. Match 3, Videl vs Spopovich. Match 4, Kibito vs Great Saiyaman. Match 5, number 18 vs Hercule. Match 6, Goku vs Vegeta. Match 7, King Cold vs Kila. And Match 8, Yamu vs Banyu. Krillin wins his match against Pintar easily, with him knocking him out of the bounce effortlessly. When Piccolo goes to face Shin in the next match, he questions to himself who this is, and Shin reads his mind to respond that he'll find out soon enough. Which, this still leads to Piccolo forfeiting his match, with Shin thinking Piccolo must have recognized him. Regardless, while Videl and Spopovich get in the ring, the other fighters from the previous tournament still comment that he has changed a lot. Meanwhile, Piccolo confronts Shin and asks if he's the Grand Kai, but Kibito reveals he's the Supreme Kai, which I think King Cold would have been with Piccolo when he asked this, because he was curious who this was as well. So, when he hears about the Kais, he asks Piccolo to explain who they are, as he never heard much about the Kais before. Anyway, Videl was seemingly winning her fight at first, but she eventually started to be beat down. After she is defeated and thrown out of the ring, Goku teleports to get senzu beans from Korin, which when he returns he gives one to Gohan to give to Videl. Also something to point out, with the sped up growing process Cold's men helped to discover, they would have more senzu beans than just the 3 they did in the main story. Anyway, the match between Gohan and Kibito starts, though Erasa and Sharpener still find out Gohan's identity, so he ditches the disguise. Anyway, Kibito still has Gohan go Super Saiyan, while Shin tells the others to stay behind no matter what happens, which is when Piccolo explains who he is. Regardless, Shin holds Gohan still so that they can follow through on their plan of having Yamu and Spopovich absorb his energy. Everyone then leaves to follow them and Shin, while Kibito stays behind to heal Gohan. On the way there, Shin tells him about Babidi and Majin Buu, which is when King Cold explains what he knows about Buu. He doesn't know a lot, but there was a warning passed down through his family that they shouldn't mess with Majin Buu. We don't officially know why his family was scared of Buu, but for the sake of this timeline, I'm going to say one of his ancestors, the strongest at his time, was killed effortlessly by Buu. So, from then on, any descendant of that ancestor told him to stay away from the magical menace. Kibito, Gohan, and Videl take off too, with Kibito explaining to Gohan what Spopovich and Yamu did to him. While they are flying, Gohan advises Videl to go back, but before she leaves she asks if Gohan was the Golden Warrior, and he reveals that he was. When they eventually catch up and land with the others, they see Babidi and Dabura exit their ship. As usual, Shin explains who Dabura is, while Yamu and Spopovich give the energy they collected to Babidi, though Babidi still causes Spopovich to explode then has Pui Pui kill Yamu when he tries to flee. While Babidi and Pui Pui go inside, Dabura rushes at them and kills Kibito with one blast. Krillin, Piccolo, and Banyu are then turned to stone, while Goku, Gohan, Vegeta, and Cold go into Babidi's ship, with Shin following them. Vegeta ends up being the one to win their game of rock paper scissors, so he gets to fight Pui Pui, which he's getting beaten down easily. So, Babidi changes it so that they are fighting on Pui Pui's home planet, but a 10 times gravity there was nothing to Vegeta, so he easily kills Pui Pui. Next is Goku vs Yakon, which starts the same without him being able to see. He starts off with turning into a Super Saiyan, which is when he finds out Yakon can absorb light. So, once he does it again, he turns into a Super Saiyan 2 to cause it to explode by absorbing too much energy. Dabura is the next one to appear, which Gohan steps up to take him on. Meanwhile, back at the tournament, the only fighters left were number 18, Hercule, and Kila. Since there are only 3 left, Hercule proposes that number 18 and Kilo must fight, and then the winner would face him, which, this match is easy for number 18, as she knocks Kilo out of the ring with one hit. Also, during this time, Goten and Trunks will get bored of watching this tournament, so they fly off, though they eventually meet up with Videl, who explains everything to them, which they find is cool, so they take off towards the heroes. Back with number 18 and Hercule, they both enter the ring, and as number 18 grabs him, she offers to lose if he pays her 20 million zenny. However, he doesn't have that much money in this timeline. Since he didn't save the world, he wasn't able to milk as much money from people. So, when he says this, number 18 easily picks him up and throws him out of the ring, which makes her the champion of the 25th World Martial Arts Tournament. Back with Gohan and Dabura, he would be doing far better in this timeline since he never stopped training. Though, Vegeta still gets annoyed that this is taking a while, but when Goku tries to talk to him, he snaps at him saying he was just there because he wanted to fight Goku in the tournament. Dabura then flees when he gets an idea, which is when he tells Babidi that Vegeta has a wicked soul. Now, Cold would likely have a sliver of a wicked soul left, which Dabura probably would have noticed, but it would have been harder to draw out than Vegeta's. Also, even though Goku was alive in this timeline, I think he would still willingly be controlled. Not only did Goku run away from their fight, but Vegeta still would have been holding on to the grudge for Goku sparing the X-Tyrant and Cold beating him all those years ago. After he's completely controlled and becomes Majin Vegeta, Babidi teleports him, Goku, and Cold to the tournament arena. Vegeta ends up destroying the stands, killing the audience, then challenges both Goku and Cold to fight him. Vegeta still mentions his problems with both, as he says that Kakarot is too soft-hearted to be a true Saiyan, and he was sick of being surpassed by him. Then as for Cold, he says that he is sick of him acting all good and that he hates him for everything he has done to his race. Though, Shin still tries to stand in the way, but backs down when Goku seemingly goes to blast him. Shin then returns to the ship to help Gohan, since he was still facing Babidi and Dabura. Back to fight with Cold, Goku, and Majin Vegeta, Goku goes Super Saiyan 2, which causes Vegeta to do the same, while Cold transforms into his 5th form. The two start the fight with Vegeta, which they are easily beating him down. However, something to mention is if Goku would still have unlocked Super Saiyan 3 or not, which I think he would have. Even though he was alive in this timeline, he still would have trained intensely in Otherworld. Also, he would have trained with Cold and Vegeta, which could have helped him get to that higher level. Vegeta would have known about it this time though, would have tried to get the form himself. However, he would have got close to obtaining it, but wouldn't have achieved it yet. As for Cold, he wouldn't have let himself fall behind and would have strived for a new form too. Though, since he still dealt with his empire in his free time, he wouldn't have had much time to use this form, so it likely has a stamina drain issue too. Regardless, with the anger of being surpassed by both Cold and Goku, and with Babidi's control drawing out his potential and power, he transforms into his Super Saiyan 3 for the first time. In response to this, Goku would transform into his Super Saiyan 3 form as well. As for Cold, I'm basing his 6th form on the one in the fan manga Dragon Ball Multiverse. His body starts to get taller with his head becoming elongated like Frieza's 3rd form, though he also becomes more monstrous in appearance, with more spikes appearing on his body, along with him sprouting his 2nd pair of arms. Since this is a completely fan-made form, it's up to guessing how strong it is, but for the sake of this timeline I will put it at the power level of his Super Saiyan 3, which, with both Cold and Goku teaming up against Vegeta in these forms, the Saiyan Prince doesn't stand a chance. From their fighting, however, this would have caused Majin Buu's sealed ball to open even faster. After all, it has the power of 3 Super Saiyan 3 level fighters, instead of 2 Super Saiyan 2 level fighters giving it power. Before it opens, Gohan tries to blast it with his full power, with it having seemingly worked, since when the ball opened, nothing appeared at first. However, they were wrong, as a smoke cloud above them formed itself into Majin Buu. So, the magical menace was awake once again, which Goku, Cold, and Vegeta would have noticed right away. Though, Goku and Cold try to stop the battle as they notice Buu is released, but Vegeta won't let them, even though he's being easily beaten down by the two. Back at where Buu is, Dabura starts to insult him by calling him a fat and stupid loser, which causes Buu to attack him. Then back with Vegeta and the others, Goku and Cold try to stop the fight yet again, but since he is still refusing, Goku and Cold knock him out in a joint attack. Both then eat a senzu bean and take off towards the battlefield. While they start to head towards it, Babidi orders Buu to kill Gohan and Shin. Though, Gohan is blasted away and seemingly killed, but Shin manages to save him. However, before Buu can kill Shin, it is revealed Dabura is alive as he throws a spear through Buu's stomach. Buu then turns Dabura into a cookie and eats him, causing Krillin, Piccolo, and Banyu to be turned back to normal. At this point is when Goku and King Cold arrive, with him easily beating down Buu at first. When they are fighting them, King Cold notices something within Buu, which What he notices reminds him about when he knows the androids within Cell all those years ago, and he figures it must be the Supreme Kais that Shin said Buu absorbed. So, King Cold uses the Force Spirit Fission on Majin Buu, which separates the South Supreme Kai and Grand Supreme Kai from Buu, which this causes Buu to start to scream as he begins to go through transformation, with him thrashing as he does. Though, in this transformation, he gets shorter and scrawnier, though also becomes muscular as he reverts to Kid Buu. After he finishes transforming, he would start the fight with Cold and Goku. One-on-one, they wouldn't be able to do much to Kid Buu because of his reckless fighting style. When the two team up, however, Kid Buu doesn't get a chance to throw hits at the two. He would be getting pummeled by the combined attacks of Cold and his 6th form in Super Saiyan 3 Goku. While they are fighting, Babidi would still be alive, but since Piccolo is awake again, he would come in and slice Babidi in half. He, along with Banyu and Krillin, then fly off towards the fight with Kid Buu, leaving Babidi there to die. Once they arrive, they would join in on teaming up on Buu, since they would know they can't let this monster live. So, I think they would fire a combined blast, with King Cold using the Death Ball, Goku using the Super Kamehameha, Piccolo using the Special Beam Cannon, Banyu using the Blast Cannon, and Krillin using the Kamehameha too. When Trunks and Goten arrive, they would even join in, with Trunks using the Double Buster and Goten using the Kamehameha. Even Gohan might get back up and use his Kamehameha too. Lastly, Vegeta would have eventually woken up during this beam struggle, which, when he flies to the battlefield, he would put aside his pride for a moment and transform into a Super Saiyan 3, and then use his final flash. So, this combined blast from all the heroes should be more than enough to take down Kid Buu, so when it hits them, even though he tries to resist, he is obliterated. This means that the Buu saga ends far earlier than usual, with them falling out of their current forms, as Goku and Vegeta go back to their base, and Cold goes back to his 4th form. While they are resting, the South Supreme Kai and Grand Supreme Kai would come up and thank King Cold for separating them from Buu. Shin would end up having a heartfelt reunion with them all saying it's sad that they lost those West Supreme Kai and North Supreme Kai, though this gives King Cold an idea, and he passes this on to Goku. So, they would go and get the Dragon Radar from Bulma, and then they would gather the Dragon Balls. With their first wish, they would wish for everyone who wasn't evil that was killed by Vegeta to be revived. Since reviving a large group of people takes up 2 of the wishes on the Earth Dragon Balls, and they didn't have a 3rd wish Shenron could do, they'd dismiss him. From there, Cold would take the Dragon Radar with him as he and Banyu teleport to New Namek. After gathering the Namekian Dragon Balls, since there's no time limit for reviving people on them, they revive the West Supreme Kai and the North Supreme Kai. Then, before they teleport back to Earth, King Cold would explain everything that happened with Buu and why they revived them, since the other Supreme Kai were separated from Buu. So, they would then teleport them back to the Earth, which now that all the Supreme Kais are back together, it is like a heartfelt reunion. It's also potentially possible, as thanks to King Cold for bringing them back and separating them from Buu, that they could offer to train him, which he might take them up on that offer, but he said it wouldn't happen right away, as he was curious about meeting the regular Kai and Grand Kai first. The Grand Supreme Kai tells him that he understands and at least takes him to the sacred world of the Kai briefly, so that King Cold could find his way there later. So, once everyone is back on Earth, and since everyone that was killed was revived, they would celebrate the defeat of Majin Buu. From there, they would then all return home, with Cold stopping Goku to talk to him first. When Goku had told Cold about his adventures before, he would have mentioned training with King Kai, so Cold would ask Goku to introduce him to the North Kai. The main reason Cold would ask Goku is because he doesn't know where his planet is, and he wants to be formally introduced, so he can go about it in a cordial manner. So, Goku agrees and teleports him and Banyu up to King Kai's planet. After the cordial introduction, King Cold would get to the point, with him asking if he can be trained by the Kai. This likely wouldn't help him much power-wise, but he could still learn new techniques from him. I think with some convincing from Goku, and Cold adding in that the Grand Supreme Kai said he should do this, King Kai would agree. As Goku leaves, Cold and Banyu would still have to go through King Kai's test of making him laugh. It might take a little while, but they would eventually get him to do so. As for his training, the part with Bubbles and Gregory would be kinda pointless since they could easily pass those trials. So, King Kai would jump into teaching them the techniques of Kaioken and the Spirit Bomb. It took Goku 6 months to do this training, but with them being far stronger, I'm going to cut that time in half, so it only takes Banyu and Cold 3 months at most. After this training finishes, Cold would still want to train with the other Kai. However, King Kai has a rivalry with them, but Cold would have a proposition to convince King Kai. He would say he has a competition idea in mind to see which Kai is best, that if King Kai can convince the others to train him and a squadron of his men, they could compare the squadrons afterwards to see which is best. So, one squadron would train with King Kai/North Kai, one with the East Kai, one with the West Kai, and one with the South Kai. Even though it means more people to train for King Kai, I think he would agree to this proposition so that he could settle the rivalry, which, when he gets in communication with the other Kai, they would agree as well. So, after Cold brings a squadron of men to train with King Kai, he would teleport Cold and Banyu to the East Kai's planet. We don't know much about her training, but her fighters are known for their exceptional speed, so she would help in training Cold and Banyu to get faster, which, after 3 months of her training, she would bring him and Banyu to the South Kai. As for his training, the South Kai's fighters were trained in a defensive manner, so they would be learning defensive techniques when training under him. Lastly, South Kai brings them to the West Kai's planet to train. We don't know much about his training either, but there's more known about it than the East and South Kai's trainings. In his training, he teaches the Thunder Flash attack and the flawless stance to go with it, so that they can use as little ki as possible to use the Thunder Flash attack. Of course, while Cold was on these planets, he would have left a squadron of men behind to train with each of them. After their training is eventually done, they would hold a mini Battle Royale tournament between the 4 squadrons. It's hard to say which squadron would do the best, but I think East Kai's team would be eliminated first. After East, I think the South Kai squadron would be eliminated, leaving the North Kai/King Kai's team and the West Kai's team. These were the main 2 rivals of the Kai, but I think King Kai's team would come out on top. The Grand Kai would likely have stopped in to watch this tournament as well, which is when King Cold would see his chance to introduce himself to the Grand Kai. This would still be a cordial matter, with Grand Kai being impressed that he changed over to the side of good, along with him being impressed that he helped settle the rivalry between the Kai. Though it wouldn't be settled completely since they would still strive to outdo each other in the future. Anyway, when Cold asked the Grand Kai if he could train himself and Banyu, I think the Grand Kai would agree. We don't know much about what his training would entail either, but whatever techniques he knows, he might pass on to the 2. However, a major thing I think he could help with is Cold's 6th form. He could help King Cold gain mastery over it, so that it no longer has the stamina drain. By this point, it would be May of age 776, as in total they trained with the North, South, East, and West Kai for 3 months each. This adds up to a year, then with the Grand Kai for a year, so 2 years have passed. Now that his training with the Kai and Grand Kai are done, he would take the offer that the Supreme Kais gave him and teleport himself along with Banyu to the sacred world of the Kai. We don't know a lot about what the Supreme Kais could train them to learn, but by looking at the techniques they know, I have some ideas. For the North Supreme Kai, he mainly fought with a sword, so he could teach them swordsmanship techniques to Cold and Banyu, which, this might end up with Cold trying to wield the Z-Sword, which I believe he could get it out of the ground. However, Shin and the others might still get the idea to test the sword, causing it to break and release the old Kai. The others would still be happy to see the old Kai, with Cold introducing himself. Regardless, he would go back to his training with the North Supreme Kai, but since the Z-Sword broke, they might try to use T-Swords we have seen Vegito and Zamasu use. Also, the North Supreme Kai could teach them his technique of the God Shock Flash. The West Supreme Kai could teach her technique of the Sacred Light Bullet, and even though she wasn't the strongest Supreme Kai, she was shown to be faster than the other 3, so her training could be about speed too. As for the South Supreme Kai, since he is physically the strongest of the 4, his training could rely on strength, along with him teaching the mighty powerful God Shockwave and the Thunderclap techniques. Then for Shin/East Supreme Kai, we know a little more about his training because of what he taught Gohan and Future Trunks. He taught Future Trunks healing, but he could also teach some of his techniques, such as God's Assault or his telekinesis, which he used to hold Gohan in place. All in all, if they trained with each Supreme Kai for 3 months, it would take a year as well, so it is now May of age 777. Lastly, they would train with the Grand Supreme Kai for a year, with him teaching some of his many techniques, which, this would include the Destructive Grenade, the Flame Shower Breath, and the Grand Supreme Divide. Though the major technique he could pass on is the Kai Kai Motaro, which we see in the manga. This is used to seal an opponent's magic power, so it could take a while for the 2 to learn. Regardless, after the year of his training has passed, it would be May of age 778, which is only 3 months before the Battle of Gods happens. Though, before he and Banyu leave, I think the old Kai would offer to unlock their potential since they aren't busy with training anymore and as thanks for freeing him. This whole time of training, Cold would have had his men check on his empire, and he would have made broadcasts too, so that his empire was kept up on what he was doing. Anyway, after they get their potential unlocked, Cold would discuss an idea he has with the Grand Supreme Kai. He would have learned about how the Supreme Kai are there to help life develop on planets, and he has an idea that he could help both his empire and the Supreme Kai with their job. His idea would have been to, with the help of Council Corp, develop the technology that help terraform planets, which is making them suitable for life. If you've ever seen the game Spore and how planets are terraformed in the space stage, it would be something like that. I think the Grand Supreme Kai would find this an interesting idea, and since Cold and Bonnie are essentially apprentices of the Supreme Kai now, he allows them to do this. So, Cold and Bonnie would return to the Earth and go to Capsule Corp, so that they could talk to Bulma about this idea. She would find it interesting to say the least and would try to help to the best of her ability with it, with Dr. Briefs helping as well. However, they would both point out to Cold that they would need a plan to test it on if they do manage to find the technology. So, while Cold scientists and Capsule Corporation work on developing this technology, Cold and Bonnie would start to explore the Empire for potential planets that could be helped by this kind of process. They would have also got the help from the Supreme Kais, the Grand Supreme Kai, and the Galactic Patrol to find a planet they think is suitable, which this search would bring them to choose the planet of Wampa to check out first, since it is a hostile world to live on. So, Cold and Bonnie plot the course of their ship to head there, so they can decide if it is suitable for their project or not. There is something I forgot to mention in the last part that I think would have happened before King Cold left the Earth after Boo was defeated. He likely would have been on Earth for a couple days before he left, and he would have seen the things Gohan and Videl were doing when trying to be heroes as the Great Saiyaman 1 and Great Saiyaman 2. So, seeing them trying to be heroes like this would give him an idea that he would propose to Gohan and Videl one day. When he goes to them, he talks with them for a little bit just to catch up on how things are going. Though, he eventually gets to the point and suggests that Gohan and Videl should join the Galactic Patrol. He would say he knew about the superhero things they were trying to do, and that this could be a way he gets to further that passion. Also, not only could this appeal to his and Videl's hero side, but it could also appeal to Gohan's scholar side in some ways, which Cold would bring this up, saying that Gohan would not only be able to help people around the universe, but he could also learn about other planets and the alien species on them, and then study them. He could also still do his studies on Ki if he wanted to while he was in space. He might even be able to combine the two studies, since he could talk about how different alien species make use of Ki as well. So, I think Gohan and Videl would agree to this and Cold would teleport them to the Galactic Patrol. After being introduced to the Galactic King, I don't think he would turn this suggestion down, since he could see it as useful to have someone as strong as them in the Galactic Patrol. So, King Cold leaves them with the Galactic Patrol while he teleports back to the Earth and has Goku bring him to the Kai, like he did in the last part. Also, years later after getting his potential unlocked by the old Kai, he could see that as something useful to Gohan and Videl, so he might bring them to the Sacred World of the Kai to get their potential unlocked too. Anyway, this is finally where I can begin from where the story left off last time. As Cold and Bonnie approach Wampa, they would get the signal on their ship from a distress call, which, this is odd, since they thought this planet was deserted of sentient life, but they still land on Wampa, nonetheless. When they land, a scene like the one in the Broly movie of Paragus running towards the landing ship would happen. When he sees it as King Cold, however, he's much more cordial, since he didn't know what had happened to the Saiyans yet. After talking for a little bit, Paragus would call in Broly, which is when King Cold might be a little impressed by his strength, especially with him getting this strong on a hostile planet like Wampa. Regardless, he allows them on their ship and gets some new armor immediately, though, when talking to Paragus, the old Saiyan eventually reveals that he wants revenge on Prince Vegeta, so King Cold would fill him in on a lot of things. He would tell him about how Planet Vegeta was destroyed and about how Cold himself eventually turned over a new leaf. However, the major thing he wouldn't leave out, unlike Frieza, is that Prince Vegeta turned over a new leaf too and is good now. Since Cold no longer has the motive of wanting to get rid of the Saiyans like Frieza did, he has no reason to hide this information. He would also point out to Paragus that trying to get revenge on someone who was just an infant at the time Broly was exiled, which means they had no choice in the matter, is a foolish idea. Paragus would, at first, be shocked to hear all of this about Prince Vegeta turning good, though he would understand the logic behind Cold's words, though it would take time to get over his plan of revenge. So, even though Cold promised to introduce Goku to strong fighters when he finds any, he's going to hold off on introducing them to Goku and Vegeta at first, at least until Paragus finally gets over this whole revenge thing. Cold will also likely ask Paragus about the collar around Broly's neck, which when it is explained to him, I think Cold would order it to be removed. He doesn't see the use of something cruel like that anymore, as he wants all his men to be treated fairly. Paragus might be reluctant to do this, but Cold will tell him if Broly gets out of hand, Cold should be able to handle him in a fight. So, reluctantly, Paragus will remove the collar, which Cold then has it and the remote for it destroyed. Anyway, Cold will explain to them why they came to Wampa, and that they plan to terraform it to be habitable. He would also tell them that they don't have to be part of Cold's forces if they don't want to, but the resources of the Empire can be useful for them to use if they decide to return to Wampa. Regardless, this process of making Wampa habitable would take some time. Since it's a desert-like planet, there are many things that would have to be done to make it that way. The temperature would obviously need to be lowered for there to be plants and liquid water, though the atmosphere might need to be changed somewhat, but not a lot, since it's apparently breathable to humanoid creatures like Saiyans. Now, it's hard to say how long something like this would take, but after using the technology he and Capsule Corporation came up with to terraform planets, the atmosphere would eventually be good for better life, and they'd have water. Since Cold can't develop life, however, there's two things he could do to try and get plants onto the planet. He would either introduce plants from other planets, or he could get the Supreme Kai's help in developing plant and animal life specifically for Vampa, which, since their job is to develop life anyway, I believe that is the option he would do. So, he would get in contact with the Supreme Kais and ask them for help with this. We don't really know how they'd create life or how long it takes, but since they are godly beings, I don't think it would take too long. So, as a time frame, I think they might be able to change Vampa into being a fruitful and habitable world within a month or two. Now that the planet is fruitful and habitable, Broly and Paragus might still live there like we've seen Broly return there at the end of his movie. Though, as thanks, I believe they would stay part of Cold's forces. So, when he needed them for missions or anything, they would go with him, but when they aren't needed, they would probably be back at their newly reformed home. Regardless, after all of this, Cold would return to Earth and tell Bulma how this process of making the planet suitable for life went. Any potential mishaps he noticed with the technology he would inform Bulma and his scientists about so that they could improve it. However, while there, he might talk to Bulma about another idea he had. He already went to planet Metamore, so his men know the fusion dance, but it still has the limitation of people having to be of similar size and power. Since they haven't used the Batara before, he doesn't know of a way, for example, that he and Banyu would be able to fuse, which, because of this, he might get Bulma's help in making a way that anyone could fuse if they wanted to. So, we might end up seeing the Matamo ring that was created by Bulma and Dragon Ball Fusions be created in this timeline. Though, it would take a little bit of time for that to be created, and it would likely have to go through a lot of testing before it could be completed. So, while that is being done, Cold might go up to the lookout and see Dende. As brief spoilers for the manga, if you haven't been reading it, Frieza got access to a hyperbolic time chamber somehow, though we don't know how or where, but this gave me an idea. By now, Dende would have already made the improvements to the hyperbolic time chamber, even though he didn't have to recreate it, since it obviously wasn't destroyed by Buu. Goku likely would still have asked him to improve it. So, when Cold arrives on the lookout and starts talking to Dende, he catches up with him at first. Though, he eventually gets to the point and asks Dende if he could theoretically make another hyperbolic time chamber. Dende says he doesn't know for sure, as he never tried to make a second one, but he could give it a shot. Then when he asks why, Cold would explain he was thinking about having one installed on his ship, so that he and his men could use it to train. Because of all the help Cold and Banyu have been to the Earth, I think Dende would be fine with doing this, so he does try to make a hyperbolic time chamber for Cold. This wouldn't happen, though, until after Cold either has his ship expanded, or gets a new ship built with room for one. I think he might just get a new ship built, since it has been years, or maybe even a decade now, since Cold has had his current ship built. Technology would have changed a lot since then, so it could be useful to just get a new ship made altogether. So, after it is eventually finished, he would bring Dende on board and show him where he would like the hyperbolic time chamber. We don't know if Dende is able to make a second one, but for the sake of this timeline, I believe he would be able to do so. Also, something to mention is that Cold would have started the process of terraforming other planets in his empire too, after the success he had on Vampa, which, with the agreement and help of Paragus and Broly, Vampa would be incorporated into his empire too. So, trade between them would start, with Paragus and Broly receiving supplies to build homes on the now habitable planet, while they send any resources Cold might want from the planet to him. However, unbeknownst to them, in the depths of space on a faraway planet, a godly being is now waking up after his decades-long slumber. It has now been 4 years since King Cold and the other heroes defeated Majin Buu. During this time, Goku was made by Chi-Chi to start working on a farm so that he would have an actual job. This time, however, it is a better source of income for his family, since he can sell or trade his crops to people within the Cold Empire. However, far away in space, alarm bombs start to go off, as it is time for the God of Destruction to wake up after his nap that lasted 39 years. After the God is awoken by these bombs and his attendant, they go to have breakfast, where Beerus ends up asking his attendant, Whis, if Frieza destroyed Planet Vegeta like he asked him to. After Whis confirms it was, Beerus goes on to say that the next time he sees Frieza, he will erase him. However, Whis brings up to him that Frieza was defeated years ago by a Saiyan. After showing Beerus the battle through his staff, he mentions that other Saiyans are surviving in the universe too. He also mentions that Frieza's father, King Cold, has survived as well and has even changed over a new leaf. He has been helping the universe better itself, and he even ended up working alongside the Supreme Kais, which we've mentioned to him that he helped to get the other Supreme Kais resurrected. This would surprise Beerus at first, as he never thought someone like Cold would turn over a new leaf. Hearing about this new empire, and about the work he did with the Supreme Kais, would pique his interest. He's going to put that on the back burner for now though, as he is still trying to remember why he asked to be woke up at this time. In the meantime, he heads to a planet and ends up trying their food. Though, since it is too greasy for him, he destroys half of the planet by just tapping his finger on the table. Meanwhile, on Earth, Goten still wants to get Videl a wedding present, but he'd unfortunately have to give it to them late, since they are still off in space with the Galactic Patrol. Regardless, he still gets Trunks' help, within the time to get Videl the water from the hot spring. Normally, this is where Hercule would have his press conference where he was given money for defeating Boo. However, that wouldn't happen here, since he is no longer the world champion, and he didn't defeat Boo. It's likely that Android 18 went back and competed in the 26th World Martial Arts Tournament, with her becoming the champion again. These tournaments are easy for her, and she'd still want the money from winning them, so there isn't any reason for her not to compete in the tournament. Meanwhile, up in the sacred world of the Kai, all of the Supreme Kais and the Old Kai notice that yet another planet has been destroyed by the God of Destruction Beerus. Anyway, Goku would still teleport to King Kai's planet, with Chi-Chi being more willing to let him go, since they weren't struggling financially in this timeline. While he goes off to train there, Vegeta takes Trunks and Bulma on the family vacation he promised. However, he still eventually takes off to go training, since he still wants to try and surpass Goku. Back with Beerus and Whis, they end up going to planet Majina, since Beerus wanted to try Dinosaur Meat. Though, the Chief refuses to give up the dinosaur, which is when Beerus appears. Even once the Chief transforms, he stands no chance and is killed easily when Beerus destroys the planet, which the Supreme Kais and Old Kai notice immediately. While Beerus was watching the planet be destroyed, he remembered the name Super Saiyan God. Afterwards, back in the sacred world of the Kai, the Old Kai explains to Shin and Kibito who Beerus is, with him saying Goku can never meet Beerus. This is when King Kai gets in contact with him, saying that Goku is training on his planet currently. Then back on Beerus' planet, he and Whis go to see the Oracle Fish, since Whis was skeptical about their prophecy. Initially, they don't remember having given this prophecy, but when Beerus threatens to reduce how much they are fed, they remember telling him about the Super Saiyan God. Though, Beerus and Whis get ready to go to King Kai's planet, since that is where the closest Saiyan is. Back on Earth, everyone gets ready to head to Bulma's birthday party, which is on a cruise ship. While everyone gathers on the ship, Bulma ends up being annoyed that both Goku and Vegeta didn't show up. Though, King Cold managed to get time away from his empire for this, so he and Bonnie are at the party as well. Anyway, Goten and Trunks end up exploring the ship, where Trunks shows him the prizes for the Big No tournament, which includes the Dragon Balls. Also, as Gohan and Videl came back to Earth for the party, this is when Goten would give her the spring water as a wedding present. Anyway, on a nearby island, Pilaf, Mai, and Shu notice the Dragon Balls briefly on their radar, so they head towards the cruise ship, which they are led on board by Trunks and Goten, so they end up eating with them. Meanwhile, Vegeta's training at Capsule Corp is interrupted by Bulma calling him and telling him to get to the party now. Then back at King Kai's planet, King Kai hurries up and hides Goku, but he is almost too late, as Beerus and Whis arrive shortly after. After talking with King Kai for a minute, Beerus would call out to Goku, as he knows he is hiding there. When he asks about the Super Saiyan God, Goku has no idea what he is talking about, as he has only heard about the regular Super Saiyan forms. As usual, Goku respectfully challenges Beerus to a fight, and the God of Destruction agrees. He goes through his Super Saiyan forms too, with him eventually reaching Super Saiyan 3. He's still defeated by Beerus with a flick to the head and a chop to the neck, causing Goku to be knocked unconscious. From there, Beerus decides he'll go to Earth instead to ask Vegeta about the Super Saiyan God. At this time, Vegeta arrived on the cruise ship, so King Kai contacts him telepathically to tell him about Beerus coming to Earth. When he tells Vegeta about Beerus, he mentions that Goku was defeated in just 2 hits, which is a surprise to the Saiyan Prince. After arriving, Beerus approached Vegeta, which he recognized the god immediately from when he was a child. Though, when asked about the Super Saiyan God, Vegeta reveals he has never heard about it. Beerus and Whis are then introduced to Bulma, who then invites him to join the party. Which, as usual, we get the scenes of Piccolo singing karaoke, Whis eating different foods, and Beerus breakdancing. Eventually, however, Beerus gets angry when Yamcha pats him roughly on the back when he is accidentally sprayed with water guns by Goten and Trunks, which, to calm the God of Destruction down, Vegeta would catch the octopus and cook it for him to try. Also, during the party, it's likely King Cold would have been working with Vegeta to keep Beerus calm, as he knows about the God of Destruction as well. Eventually, the Pilaf gang steals the Dragon Ball and holds Trunks at gunpoint, which causes a drunken Gohan to think it is an act. However, when he asks Mai to shoot him, One bullet still hits Vidal's leg, and one still hits Beerus in the forehead. Dende goes to heal Vidal, which he notices she is pregnant, but she asks him to keep quiet about it. Regardless, Beerus was angry from this, so to distract him, Vegeta announces the bingo tournament, which, since Cold is trying to help Vegeta, we would get a scene of both Vegeta and Cold doing the bingo song and dance together. Anyway, after eating many of the different foods, we suggest that Beerus should try out pudding. However, without Boo being there, he gets a chance to try it, as the Majin isn't there to hog it all. So, the scene of all the heroes attacking Beerus to try and stop him from destroying the Earth never happens. This doesn't stop the God of Destruction from getting bored of the party eventually though, which, I still think he would announce something like if they can't get the Super Saiyan God to appear soon, he will destroy the Earth. Also, there's one potential difference to point out here, which could change how they learned about the Super Saiyan God. The Namekians have been part of King Cold's empire for a while now, so eventually they might have shared their knowledge with him from the Namekian Book of Legends. Now, he already heard some of the legend about the Super Saiyan God, but he didn't hear enough to know how it was obtained. However, the book the Namekians had most likely does mention how the form was able to be obtained, so he would quickly explain this to Beerus, which the god would allow him to go to Namek to find out for sure. Meanwhile, Goku would teleport back to the Earth since his plan was to summon Shenron to wish to find out how the Super Saiyan God is obtained, though he's quickly filled in on King Cold's plan, so they wait for him to return. So, once Cold arrived on Namek, he would have explained everything that was happening to them and asked about the Namekian Book of Legends. They would gladly help Cold find the information he's looking for, and once he does, he returns to the Earth and tells everyone what they need to do. As always, they are told that they need 5 Saiyans that are pure of heart to put their power into another Saiyan, which will cause them to become the Super Saiyan God. So, the first time they try the ritual, Gohan, Goten, Trunks, and Vegeta pour their Super Saiyan energy into Goku, which, the ritual fails, and Whis points out where they went wrong. They are 1 Saiyan short. Since Cold thought it was too early to introduce Paragus and Broly to them, as Paragus is still semi-set on the whole revenge thing, they aren't there with him. So, Videl still ends up revealing that she is pregnant with Gohan's child, so they might work as a 6th Saiyan. This time, with Videl participating in the ritual, it works and Goku ascends to the level of a Super Saiyan God, which, there isn't much of a reason for me to go into detail about the Beerus and Goku fight, as nothing would really change about it. It would still last for a while, with him eventually going above the Earth to fight. However, Goku would eventually fall out of the Super Saiyan God form and fall back down to the Earth. As Beerus follows him to the Earth and lands on the ship, he still threatens to keep his promise of destroying the Earth. However, he just destroys a rock on a nearby island and says he was out of stamina, that he did destroy the Earth by doing that. Beerus and Whis then return to their planet, where Beerus still tries the food with wasabi on it. He still goes into his rampage though, but Whis easily stops him with a karate chop. From there, Beerus tells Whis to wake him up in 3 years, as he wants to take a nap. Though, before he can go to bed, Whis reminds him that he should brush his teeth first. Anyway, back on the Earth, Bulma's birthday party starts again, with Vegeta angrily swearing that he will become the next God of Destruction. Though, instead of Goku mocking Vegeta for his rage moment, since that didn't happen, he jokingly mocks him about his bingo song and dance. So, Piccolo angrily points out that he was just watching the whole time, which causes Oolong to jump on Goku for risking their lives like that. However, he explains that he did it because he was trying to come up with a plan to stop Goku. Though, Vegeta still convinces Bulma to slap Goku for what he did, which he does with pleasure. Though, back with Beerus, before he brushes his teeth like Whis was making him, he wanted to check on something first. When imagining this scene, I would see it like a post-credits sequence as it was in the Battle of Gods movie. Anyway, he decides to go and pay King Cold a visit, as the Monarch and Banyu both teleported back to their ship after Bulma's birthday party had ended. While at the party, Beerus had talked to the Earthlings about Cold, as his new and improved empire piqued his interest. As he and Whis arrive, this would scare King Cold senseless, which would cause Banyu to act cordial too after she sees how Cold is acting. When talking to Cold, he would mainly want to know what this whole empire is about, which is when Cold says it is based upon both trade and tourism, though he would also say he started helping the Supreme Kaizen better developing planets to support more advanced life. Beerus would likely talk about the food he had on Earth and different cuisines from around the universe, which, this would get Cold thinking big, as he has an idea he might try to propose to Beerus. He would mention that since his empire is partially built on tourism, the cultures and cuisines of different species is a major part of his empire. So, he would offer to set up a food-based tour for Beerus and Whis of his empire, if they would wish to do so, and they could do tours like this whenever they want to. However, Cold also might try to press his luck with Beerus and propose a type of deal with the God of Destruction. After all, He and his family used to work for the Destroyer God by destroying planets when he needed to. However, even though destroying planets is something he doesn't do anymore, he tries to propose a deal that both Beerus and Whis could train him. In exchange, he would provide them exotic foods from around the universe, and he would continue to develop planets with the Supreme Kai to improve their universe. Which, since Beerus takes year-long naps, and sometimes even decades-long naps, this would be appealing to the God of Destruction. Not only does it make his job easier, but he also gets exotic foods from around the universe, and all he must do is train Cold. It shouldn't be that hard of a thing to do, so it seems like a win-win to the God of Destruction. So, Beerus starts to talk over the details of this arrangement, so they can decide how it would work if Beerus agreed. Mainly, anytime Cold showed up to train, he would bring food to both Beerus and Whis in exchange for them training him. This would mean going through Beerus' training though, not just having Whis train him. When Beerus asks if he is trying to replace him as the God of Destruction, Cold would say he isn't. He just sees this as a win for both sides. It makes Beerus' job easier, while Cold can also get stronger and learn how to better improve the universe, and by extension his empire and the planets within it, through the training he does with the God of Destruction and his angel attendant. So, since this would make their job easier, and the sound of having exotic foods is tempting, Beerus and Whis would agree to this deal, with Cold and Beerus shaking hands to seal the deal. After the deal is finished, Beerus goes back to his planet to nap, but Whis still makes him brush his teeth before he goes to sleep. After the fight between Goku and Beerus, Goku returned to his home so he could continue his farming. One day, while he was farming, Krillin came by to visit him, with him asking Goku to hit him. He was reluctant to do so, but he eventually agreed, but this caused Krillin to get a bruise, which Android 18 ended up treating. Meanwhile, out in the wastelands, Vegeta was contemplating how he was going to surpass Goku and his Super Saiyan God power. Also in the meantime, Bulma and Whis were going to a tempura restaurant, as she was trying to use this as bribery if Beerus wanted to destroy the Earth again, so her family would be saved. When Vegeta eventually returns to Castle Corporation, he is shocked to see that Whis is there. Though, when he tries to get Whis to take him to Beerus' planet, he must resort to promising to give Whis tasty food in exchange. However, Bulma has already taken Whis to any of the restaurants that Vegeta was able to think of, so he instead resorted to making instant ramen for Whis, so he agreed to train Vegeta. Though, before they leave, Bulma gives Vegeta some new battle armor. It has now been over half a year since Vegeta went to train at Beerus' planet, which both King Cold and Banyu were already there training. Also, in this time, Gohan and Videl's daughter Pan was born. Though, when Gohan and Hercule were playing rough with Pan, Chi-Chi scolds them when she comes over, since she doesn't want her to be a battle-loving idiot. Meanwhile, with Bulma, she ends up chasing down some robbers and helps the police officer in catching them, which it turns out to be Krillin, who gets a call about Chi-Chi, so Bulma goes over to help calm her down. This is when Goku then finds out about Bulma meeting with Whis, so he asks Bulma to tell him when Whis comes back, though he gets impatient and badgers her about it, to the point that she promises she will call him when Whis does come back. When he eventually gets the call, he takes off fast and begs Whis to train him. Whis tells him to wait until he's done eating, but Goku keeps pestering him as well. Once he finishes eating, he mentions that Goku's impatience could be an issue once they start training. This is when Chi-Chi arrives and argues with Goku about him leaving, though when Whis gets bored and starts to leave, Goku quickly grabs onto him and leaves as well. When they arrive on Beerus' planet, Beerus isn't asleep this time, since in his deal with Cold he promised to train him as well, not to just have Whis train him. I don't know if Cold would be able to wear something like this, but if he could, it's likely Cold now has the earring type accessory we've seen Beerus give to Vegeta in the manga. Beerus would likely tell Cold a similar thing that he did to Vegeta, that he must let his past sins go and rebuild himself, since before creation comes destruction. Also, even though Banyu wasn't included in the original deal, I think Cold would get Beerus' trainer too by having brought extra food on one of his visits, though he also still goes through Whis' training too. So, when Goku and Vegeta do the chores of changing Beerus' bed sheets, scrubbing tree branches, cleaning the Oracle Fish's fish bowls, and cutting the lawn, Cold and Banyu would be helping as well. After Goku receives a new outfit like the ones Cold, Banyu, and Vegeta have, they start their training of carrying weights and running from the disappearing road behind them. That night, while Whis is talking to the Oracle Fish, he reveals they aren't training as Super Saiyan since being in their base form will allow them to get stronger without relying on transforming. Though, in Cold's case, this would be his fourth form, since it implied that the fourth form is the base form of members of the Frieza race. The next day, Whis has them fight him, as he dodges all their attacks. This is when he mentions they need to master independent bodily reactions, which is something Beerus has not done yet. Meanwhile, deep in space, Sorbet was dealing with a rebellion on Frieza Planet 448. He has little troops to do anything though, so he orders them to withdraw from the rebellion. When leaving, the ship is struck by an unknown force, which turns out to be Champa and Vados. Champa has Vados destroy the planet, but it turns out to be the wrong one according to them, so they then take off in search of another planet. Then, deep in Hell, we see Frieza in a cocoon being tormented by stuffed animals and the Angels of Hell. Back with Sorbet, he decides that it would be better for them to revive Frieza, so he sets his sights on Earth. Then, back on Beerus' planet, Whis ends up drawing his signature on their clothing. It also gives him the advice that Vegeta needs to learn to relax, while telling Goku that he is too relaxed. I'm not sure what advice he could give to Cold and Banyu, but I can see it being that they need to relax more too, since they are more serious about things like how Vegeta is. Then, back on Earth, Piccolo is babysitting Pan for Gohan and Videl when he notices an evil energy in the distance. This is when Sorbet and Tagoma arrive on Earth to gather the Dragon Balls. As usual, they run into the Pilaf gang, which they have already gathered the Dragon Balls. They convince them to let them have a wish, with them wishing for Frieza to be resurrected. Regardless, when Shenron says they have 2 more wishes, Shu asks for 1 million Zenny and my wishes for the world's best ice cream. Afterwards, Sorbet and Tagoma gather the pieces of Frieza and take him to the ship. He's then put into a healing pod, which renews him to how he used to be shortly afterwards. After Frieza is completely revived, he briefly reviews the status of his forces, which there are even less than the 1,000 usual soldiers left in the Frieza force, as many rejoined King Cold's empire after seeing how it was ran now. This is when he asks about his father, which is when they tell him that Cold has become good and is still running his empire. This, of course, angers Frieza, so when he declares revenge on the Saiyans, he also declares revenge on his father. But after hearing that Buu was defeated by them, Frieza decides to train for 4 months. Back on Beerus' planet, while Goku, Vegeta, Cold, and Banyu are training, there ends up being a brief flash of blue from the 2 Saiyans and a flash of gold from Cold. Anyway, 4 months later, Jaco arrives on Earth and goes to Capsule Corporation to see Bulma, which he warns her that Frieza is on his way to Earth with hundreds of soldiers. Since Videl and Gohan are also part of the Galactic Patrol in this timeline, they came with Jaco. Bulma then tries to contact Whis with the bribe of a strawberry sundae to get the heroes to come to Earth. When they don't answer, she instead contacts the Z Fighters. After Krillin is called, he has 18 bring in his gi and cut his hair. They then get the sensor beams from Korin before meeting up with Master Roshi, Tien, Piccolo, Videl, and Gohan. While the Frieza Force starts land, Bulma and Jaco arrive on the battlefield too, while she forces Jaco to fight as well. As Frieza exits his ship, he recognizes Jaco and Piccolo, but Bulma tries to plead for more time for Goku to arrive. Frieza only gives him 10 seconds, and after he doesn't show up, Sorbet orders them to attack. While the heroes are fighting his forces, Frieza recognizes Gohan but is disgusted by him being like Goku. Meanwhile, back on Beerus' planet, Beerus suggests that we should send him to that place to train, so he could have a little bit of peace and so they can get stronger too. Back at his fight, since Gohan didn't stop training this summon, he easily defeats Shizune, so Tagoma doesn't blast him through the chest. This is when it is revealed Tagoma became Frieza's training partner for the past 4 months, so he has become far stronger. At this time, Goten and Trunks notice the frog that Ginyu switched bodies with on Namek and Jaco's ship. While Tagoma is fighting with Piccolo, Gotenks arrives and kicks Tagoma in the crotch. However, they end up defusing and hide with Bulma and Jaco. As Tagoma is kneeled over in pain, he ends up noticing the frog and reads what he wrote on the ground, which causes him and Ginyu to change bodies. Ginyu then explains what happened with him to Frieza, which Frieza is pleased to see him. While Ginyu attacks all of the heroes, Bulma and Jaco keep trying to contact Whis. Then while Goku, Vegeta, Cold, and Banyu figure out they must go to Whis' staff as the guide, Gohan is easily overpowering Ginyu. He never stopped training, so he can still easily access Super Saiyan. However, if Frieza goes to shoot him with a death beam, Piccolo takes the blast for him. Back with Beerus and Whis, Beerus gets frustrated because he eats out the pizza and wants more, so Whis brings him out of that place so he could use his staff again. This is when Whis notices the message from Bulma, so Whis tells him it would take 35 minutes for them to return to Earth. Goku and Cold then teleport Banyu and Vegeta to the Earth after they notice Gohan's ki when he is a Super Saiyan. Goku then teleports Piccolo to the lookout so they can revive him with the Namekian Dragon Balls. Back at the battlefield, Ginyu tries to interfere, but Vegeta easily blasts him away and kills him. Then, as Frieza exits his pod, he kills the rest of his forces that were with him for failing, except for Sorbet. He would then transform into his final form, as he prepares to fight Cold first. Normally he would want to start with fighting Goku, but he thinks his father is a failure and that angered him more. While both in their 4th forms, their fight would be long and drawn out since he would be fighting evenly for a little bit, though Cold would eventually show off his 5th form, which causes Frieza to use even more of his power. With Frieza's more intense training in his timeline, since he also knew he had to fight his father, he would be slightly ahead of Cold power-wise in his 5th form. When Cold resorts to his 6th form, however, Frieza would be getting beat down at first. He eventually asks Cold if this is all he had, as Frieza then shows off his golden form to his father. While Cold did get a brief flash of the golden form earlier, he didn't achieve it yet, but he figures this is what that flash of gold was. Frieza would go on to tell his father something like, "You can obtain this power too. You just have to ditch those pitiful monkeys and join my side, so we can rebuild the Empire in the right way." Cold would, of course, refuse this, which Frieza would say he understands. He'd go on to say that he agrees to join Cold then, which catches him off guard, but this is on one condition. Frieza tells him, "You must always keep your guard," then shoots him through the chest with a death beam. Before he dies, the last thing he hears is how Frieza made all of that up just to get his father to lower his guard. Besides a slight change, the rest of the Resurrection F saga goes the same. The only difference is that Goku starts out his fight with Frieza as his Super Saiyan Blue right away, since Frieza already turned into his golden form. While their fight goes on, Jaco would still try to take pictures to get Earth destroyed since it is too dangerous, but Bulma still smashes the camera. Meanwhile, while Beerus and Whis are on their way to Earth, they run into Champa and Vanes. But after some brief bickering, they go on their way. Beerus and Whis arrive on Earth, which worries Frieza that he is there to destroy him. But Beerus reassures him that the gods of destruction don't take sides in mortal affairs. Anyway, the fight eventually begins to move in Frieza's favor, so he begins to gloat. But when Goku goes to his full power and seemingly wins the fight, he drops to his base form, which is when Sorbet shoots him through the chest. Then when Krillin goes to give Goku a Senzu Bean, Frieza tries to finish Goku off with a Death Beam, but Vegeta deflects the blast, which then hits and kills Sorbet. Vegeta then starts to pummel down Frieza after transforming into his Super Saiyan Blue. But as Frieza reverts to his fourth form of Vegeta goes to finish him off, Frieza blows up the Earth. Whis protects some of the heroes, including Goku, with an energy shield, which is when Whis explains he can rewind time by 3 minutes at most. After he does this, Goku goes Super Saiyan Blue again and disintegrates Frieza with his God Kamehameha. Vegeta then tries to accuse Goku of stealing his glory, but Bulma goes on to tell Vegeta what happened. Goku then goes to New Namek and wishes for both Piccolo and King Cold to be revived. Everyone would then go to Capsule Corporation to celebrate the defeat of Frieza. While there, even though Gohan is stronger in this timeline, he still feels guilty since he can't protect Videl and Pan from being killed. Along with blaming himself for Piccolo's death, he asks Piccolo to train him again. Though since Gohan and Videl still work with the Galactic Patrol, it might take a little bit of time off so Gohan can do this training, since I don't think Piccolo would be interested in going with him to join the Galactic Patrol. After this celebration ends, Cold will return to his ship before he goes back to Beerus' planet. Since he was defeated at the hands of his son, and he is falling behind the Saiyans, he decides to use the hyperbolic time chamber that he had Dende make. He and Banyu would go in there together, and they stay in there until he achieves the golden form, which, since he has already achieved the brief flash of this form, it shouldn't take him long to achieve it. So, after achieving the golden form, he and Banyu would exit the hyperbolic time chamber. Meanwhile, back in the depths of hell, Frieza is screaming in rage as the angels of hell welcome him home. Eventually, after the defeat of Golden Frieza, Goku, Vegeta, King Cold, and Banyu would return to Beerus' planet to train. While they are training in gravity suits, Champa and Vados land violently, causing Beerus to wake up from his nap, with him attacking the hero since he thought they woke him up. Eventually, Champa interrupts and talks with Beerus, while Vados reveals to Goku that the two are twin brothers. This is also when it is explained that there are 12 universes and Champa is the god of destruction from Universe 6. After comparing foods from their universe, Beerus reveals he got his from Earth. But once Vados tells Champa that the Universe 6 Earth was destroyed after the Earthlings were killed in the Civil War. As the brothers start to fight over this, Whis and Vados stop them. Since gods of destruction fighting like that could destroy their universes, Champa instead suggests a 5-on-5 tournament, with the winner getting the Earth from Universe 7. This is also when the Super Dragon Balls are mentioned since they will use them to move the Earth if Universe 6 wins. So, after Beerus gets the opinions of Goku, Vegeta, Cold, and Banyu, he agrees to the tournament. Beerus and Champa then decide that the tournament should be held on the Nameless Planet. They then decide the rules, with Goku suggesting you lose if you surrender or fall out of the ring and that killing isn't allowed. Then Vegeta suggests that enhancements and weapons aren't allowed, as well as that there should be a test, so that idiot fighters can't be recruited. This time, there isn't a reason to search for more fighters, as Goku, Vegeta, Cold, and Banyu would make 4, while Beerus chooses the 5th fighter. The heroes then return to Earth to get Bulma's help in finding the last Super Dragon Ball. Meanwhile, Champa and Vados go to the Nameless Planet, where they start to decorate it. They give it an atmosphere, an arena, some concession stands, stands for spectators, and portraits of the gods of destruction. Back on Earth, they then try to summon Shenron, but since he can't find the Super Dragon Balls, they still have Bulma make a radar for them. Before Beerus and Whis leave, they mention going to get Monica, which when Goku hears that he is their strongest fighter, he's excited to fight him. While Bulma tries to find the last Super Dragon Ball, she gets in contact with her sister so she can try to get in contact with Jaco to get his help. While on Earth, Goku told everyone they were going on a picnic in space, so when Krillin confronts them about this, they tell him the truth. Though, back on Beerus' planet, after he finishes eating, he and Whis get ready to go get Monica. And on Earth again, they would have more time to train since they don't have to find 2 more fighters in this timeline, which Goku, Vegeta, Cold, and Banyu would go into the hyperbolic time chamber to train. Since Cold would only recently have gotten the golden form, he would have the same stamina drain issue that Frieza did at first. So, he would work on training to get over that stamina drain issue, which, since they would be training for at least 3 years in the time chamber, he would be able to perfect his golden form. After Jakku goes to see Bulma, he would take her to go see Zuno about the Super Dragon Balls. As usual, while there, they run into Gepu Man, which Jakku apprehends him. After they do, they are allowed to see Zuno, which he tells them that the Super Dragon Balls are scattered around both Universe 6 and Universe 7. They then return to Earth and pass this information on to Vegeta, which is when they figure out Champa was sneaking to Universe 7 to get the Super Dragon Balls. This is also when Jakku decides he would like to see the tournament for himself. At Capsule Corporation, after they finish training, Whis arrives to take everyone to the nameless planet. Before they can go there, they must go to Beerus' planet to get him and Monica. Jakku then arrives and everyone exits the time chamber, which after they shower, they all leave to go to Beerus' planet. Goku then tries to challenge Monica to a fight, then he eventually punches him because he thought he would dodge it. After he apologizes, they then finally head off to go to the nameless planet. Once there, since the seats look hard, Whis changes his stance to have new and comfortable seats. Regardless, Goku then talks with Shin and eventually talks with the Supreme Kai of Universe 6, Fuwa. After arriving at where they are going to take the test, Goku and Vegeta start to talk with Kappa to find out the differences between their universes. While that is happening, King Cold will start to talk with Frost to do the same. Anyway, everyone passes the test in this timeline, with Beerus making Monica the 5th fighter to go. So, when they play rock, paper, scissors, it still ends with Goku being the one to go first, which this makes the first match against Batamo. Batamo starts to bounce around the ring, and after getting a strong hit on Goku, he just barely manages to save himself. Though as Goku starts to exercise to digest his food, Batamo shoots Ki Blast at him to help, which Goku easily dodges. Goku then jumps behind Batamo and uses the Kamehameha on him, but he comes out unscathed. Goku then starts punching him repeatedly, which is when they find out Batamo is nullifying the damage somehow. Goku then eventually grabs Batamo's legs, causing him to fall, and throws him out of the ring, so he's declared the winner by ring out. As Frost then enters the ring, as the second match is between Goku and Frost, everyone is a little shocked to see a nice counterpart of Frieza. Though they aren't as shocked, because they have King Cold on their team, which is kind of a nice counterpart of Frieza. Anyway, as Frost tries to catch Goku off balance by using his speed, Goku shocks him by telling him to hurry up and transform. So, Frost transforms into his second form, and they start to go blow for blow with each other. Goku would then go Super Saiyan, and he advises Frost to transform too, so he obliges and goes into his final form. As their fight goes on, Goku starts to feel tired for some reason, but Frost then knocks him out of the ring, making Frost the winner. After Goku lost, Chi-Chi ran up to him, since at first she thought he was dead. Regardless, Goku was fine, so Frost went up to thank him for the fun match. The third match would then be between Banyu and Frost. It's hard to say if Banyu would be able to win this match or not, though she would at least stand a better chance than Piccolo did, since she trained with Beerus and Whis after all. While Banyu flies down to the ring to start their match, Vegeta begins to question how Goku lost his stamina so fast. Which, this is when Jakku would come stand beside Vegeta so he could get a better view of the fight. However, in this match, Banyu likely wouldn't have to resort to using clones like Piccolo did. Instead, she would probably use a strategy of rushing in and getting some hits in on Frost and rushing out before he gets a chance to retaliate. When she gets a chance, she'll also throw in some Ki Blasts as well, to try and wear Frost down even more. However, as Banyu's stamina starts to run down from this strategy, Frost will finally be able to get some hits in. This will continue for a little bit, with her eventually getting dizzy. When she falls unconscious, Frost is announced the winner of the match. Though, Jakku would call out saying Frost isn't the winner, and would go on to have the referee check his arm for a needle. He finds the needle, but when Frost tries to claim it as biological, Cold shoots that down as he doesn't have that ability and he is of the same race. This is when it is revealed that Frost is part of the Space Pirates, and he starts wars to be the one to conclude them. Afterwards, Vegeta would still want to fight Frost, but Cold would stop him. Cold believes he might be able to get Frost to see the error of his ways, so Vegeta would step down. Also, since Banyu's loss was her return, she would still be in the tournament, but Cold convinces her to forfeit so that he can put his plan of helping Frost into action. As Cold goes to enter the ring, Banyu doesn't need to give the advice about Frost using tricks, as Cold will likely know all these tricks since he used to use them. When Frost tries to say he will use his other poison needle, Cold convinces the referee to allow this. Regardless, as the fourth match begins, Cold and Frost start to fight, and they would begin to get talking. Cold would try to ask him why he does things in that evil way, and why doesn't he be a hero like he pretends to be. Cold would tell him how he used to be a tyrant that ruled with an iron fist, though he would go on to talk about that after he was given a chance to change his ways, his empire has only improved. His subjects are now loyal to him, and he has had a much happier life ever since then. Cold would also mention how he grew both as a person and he grew in terms of strength. which he would tell Frost if he changed his ways in a sincere manner. Cold would even teach him some things. He would then show off some of the things he could teach Frost, which the first would be the 5th form. After he shows off the 5th form, the next option is to show Frost the 6th as well. However, Cold will then revert to the 4th form so that he can show Frost his strongest form. He theoretically could have gone to his golden form in his 5th or 6th form, but he decided not to since he hasn't practiced it yet. Anyway, after he turns into his golden form and when he starts to fight in this form, Frost would easily be getting beaten down, as he would stand no chance against it. So, while Frost is down on the ground, Cold would hold out his hand to Frost to see if it is a deal. Now, it's hard to say if Frost would take this deal, but it would likely work out in his favor if he did. Not only would he get to keep being a hero if he did change his ways, that might convince Champa to not destroy him, since he turned over a new leaf. It would be a long process for him to change though, but he shakes Cold's hand and takes the deal. They then finish their match, with Cold easily knocking him out of the ring. After Frost was eliminated, they started to look for an injury on Goku to see if he was poisoned as well, which, when they find the wound from the poison needle, he's still reinstated into the tournament. After this match, since Frost took Cold's words into consideration, he doesn't try to sneak off and take the cube. Automagedda would be the next contestant, so this makes the 5th match between Automagedda and King Cold. This fight would be nothing like the one between Vegeta and Automagedda. Sure, the heat might affect Cold in this match, but the lack of oxygen would not affect him like it did with Vegeta. After all, Frieza's race can breathe in outer space, so they do not need oxygen. Also, I don't see a reason for Cold not to use his golden form in this fight, since he was already in it, and he doesn't have the stamina drain issue anymore, which, since the golden form is far stronger than a regular Super Saiyan, lifting Automagedda should not be a problem. After all, the golden form is on par with Super Saiyan Blue, which is leagues above Super Saiyan in power, so Cold would easily be able to lift Automagedda and throw him into the barrier, thus winning him the match. Cabba would be the next one to fight, but this is where Vegeta would want to talk to King Cold. Vegeta would mention that he let Cold fight Frost, so he should let Vegeta fight Cabba. Vegeta was far more interested in fighting a Saiyan of another universe, so Cold would be understanding of why he wants to do this. Also, since Vegeta did do him the favor of letting him fight Frost earlier, he would be willing to let Vegeta face Cabba. So, before the next match begins, Cold lets the referee know he is surrendering. This angers Beerus at first, since Cold should have had no problem winning the next fight. So this means the 6th match between Vegeta and Cabba, so they both enter the ring. From here, the rest of the tournament would be essentially the same as it is in the anime. Since the ring didn't get damaged that much from the fight between Cold and Automagedda, it doesn't take long for Vados and Whis to repair it, though they still make the ring bigger, and they got rid of the hitting the barrier rule. Anyway, as the two Saiyans make their way to the ring, Fubo talks about how the Universe 6 Saiyans are different, since in their universe they are called Heroes of Justice. Regardless, their match starts with Cabba on the offensive, but Vegeta easily repels his attack. So, Vegeta then goes Super Saiyan and tells Cabba to do the same, but he reveals he can't. Then when Cabba tries to surrender, Vegeta threatens to kill him, destroy planet Sadala, and kill everyone he cares about. This is the catalyst Cabba needed, so he turns into a Super Saiyan for the first time. At first, Vegeta was getting pummeled by Cabba, though he eventually takes his next punch and tells him not to forget that feeling. Cabba then powers down and Vegeta then shows off Super Saiyan Blue, which he tells Cabba if he trains he can reach this form as well. And after he punches Cabba in the gut, he tells him not to forget this pain, and he is declared the winner since Cabba fell unconscious. This makes the 7th match Vegeta vs Hit, so the legendary assassin jumps into the ring. When this match begins, Vegeta will quickly go into his Super Saiyan Blue form, though there becomes a time where he couldn't see Hit's attacks anymore. Hit would continue to attack like this, with Vegeta being unable to defend, which shocks the Saiyan Prince. Even though Hit suggested him to surrender, the Prince continues to refuse his offer. So, Hit continues to land hard blows as Vegeta falls back to his base form. Since he no longer has the strength to even surrender, Hit is declared the winner. This would mean the 8th match is between Goku and Hit. Galactic Kingdom ponders that Hit has a time skip ability, so Jacko explains this technique to Goku. At first, Goku stays in his base form, and after a little bit of fighting, he starts to predict what Hit's movements will be. Then when Goku turns into his Super Saiyan Blue, he begins to counter Hit's time skip. Hit then extends his time skip, which leads to Goku having to use the Kaioken on top of Super Saiyan Blue. He would then eventually push us to the Kaioken times 10, but even then Hit still can't keep up. Though he further improves his time skip, once they won't let him fight without the rule of no killing, Goku hops out of the ring on purpose so he could see Monica fight. This makes the 9th match Monica vs Hit, but Hit realizes that Monica is weak, so he still pretends to be hurt and goes flying out of the ring, causing Universe 7 to win the tournament. After their fight ends, Xeno still res, with both Champa and Beerus being frazzled by his appearance. As usual, since Xeno was inspired by this tournament, he says he wants to hold one between all 12 universes. Goku then acts disrespectfully and approaches Xeno, which worries everyone else, but Xeno seems to enjoy it. Regardless, Xeno then leaves as they try to find the last Super Dragon Ball, which turns out to be within the nameless planet. Beerus would keep his wish a secret, but he wishes for Universe 6's Earth to be restored, which when Champa hears about this, he has a mixed reaction to it. Regardless, Whis then drops off Beerus and Monica back at Beerus' planet. Though, Monica is still rewarded with treasure by Beerus for motivating Goku, Vegeta, Cold, and Banyu. Whis then takes Goku and everyone back to Earth, and much to Goku's delight, he returns to his home. Meanwhile, in the future timeline, Future Trunks would be running away from a mysterious being. As he reaches Capsule Corporation and prepares to go to the past, the building is attacked and Future Bulma is killed, while Trunks just barely escapes. Back on Earth, Goku and Piccolo are harvesting vegetables, but Goku eventually takes off to Beerus' planet, so Krillin is made to harvest in his place. Then, on Beerus' planet, Goku, Vegeta, Banyu, and Cold begin discussing Xeno, which is when they were told about Xeno destroying 6 universes before. Back in the future, Trunks and Mai rest for a little bit, but they are interrupted by the mysterious being, which, after Trunks is defeated, Mai tries to hold him off as seemingly killed, as Trunks glares at Goku Black. Trunks ends up causing a distraction by using the Masenko to send smoke into the air, while he flees to the time machine. Goku Black then tries to fire a Kamehameha at him, but Trunks escapes in the nick of time. Trunks and the Pilaf gang then find the time machine, so they go and get Bulma, who then takes Future Trunks to a bed. Bulma then contacts the heroes on Beerus' planet, so they all teleport back to Earth, with Beerus and Whis going too since they were interested to see what this was about. Once they are back, Goku goes and gets senzu beans from Korin and then gives one to Trunks. As he wakes up, he still attacks Goku, much to the confusion of all the heroes, but Goku blocks his punch. After Trunks regains his composure, they begin to discuss the time machine, which Bulma proudly says it is one of her inventions. Since this surprises Beerus and Whis that humans can create time machines, they tell her that this is a serious crime. Back in the future, while Goku Black was searching for Future Trunks, his time ring began to react. Then in the present, Whis explains why time travel is prohibited, and when Beerus threatens to destroy the Earth, Bulma bribes him and Whis not to by giving them fish sausage. While the heroes talk with Trunks, he explains how he stopped Majin Buu's resurrection with the help of Shin. He goes on to explain how Goku Black's attack started. Goku and Future Trunks then spar, with Goku transforming to a Super Saiyan 3 and Trunks to a Super Saiyan 2. Trunks still loses the sparring match, but they are then interrupted by a portal opening and Goku Black coming out of it. Beerus and Whis would notice the time ring on Goku Black's hand, while Goku flies up to challenge into a fight. They go blow for blow with each other for a little bit, and Goku turns Super Saiyan 2 to take them on. Though, as the portal begins to pull Goku Black back into it, he destroys the time machine before he is completely sucked back into the portal. Back in the future, Goku Black is satisfied since he embedded Goku's power and fighting style into his own. Then in the present, they start to discuss the time ring Goku had, with Whis explaining that only Supreme Kai can use it and explaining why a portal appeared to pull Goku Black back. This is when Bulma comes in and reveals she kept the time machine that Cell came to the past in. Then, in the future again, it is revealed that Future Mai survived her encounter with Goku Black. Back in the present, while Bulma works on the time machine, Vegeta goes to train in the gravity chamber, Goku goes to King Kai's planet to train, and Cold and Banyu stay behind so they can try to help Beerus and Whis get to the bottom of Goku Black having a time ring. At Capsule Corporation, Dr. Brief returns from his vacation, so she gets his help in repairing the time machine. Future Trunks would end up talking with Mai about her future self and how she helped lead the resistance against Goku Black. Goku then comes back since King Kai wouldn't let him train there, so he instead gives advice to Trunks on his current situation. Meanwhile, Beerus and Whis decide to start further investigating Goku Black, which Cold offers his assistance. While Bulma continues to rebuild the time machine, Trunks finds out Gohan works with the Galactic Patrol. Luckily, Gohan is on Earth currently, so he still goes to Gohan's for dinner, and after seeing him and his family, Trunks is inspired by him, so he realizes what it is he's fighting for. At this time, since Beerus and Whis said he knows someone in Universe 10 with the same key as Goku Black, he and Whis prepared to leave. As usual, Goku goes with them, but since Cold and Banyu are helping out Beerus, they go as well. On the way there, Whis starts to talk about Zamasu, saying that he is the current apprentice of Universe 10 Supreme Kai, Kawasu. Meanwhile, in Universe 10, Zamasu still talks about wanting to destroy the humans, but Kawasu tells him that the Kais can't interfere with creation. When Goku and the others arrive, Zamasu still tries to attack him, but Kawasu stops him. After getting caught up in Goku Black, they confirm the time rings are all there, and Goku still challenges Zamasu to a fight, which Kawasu allows, saying it will be part of his training. Meanwhile on Earth, Future Trunks talks with Krillin about his family, and he is shocked to see that 18 is his wife. In Goku's spar with Zamasu, he goes Super Saiyan 2 and starts to beat him down, with their match going the same. After they spar, Cold would ask Kawasu if he could spar with Zamasu as well. Since he trained with the Supreme Kai of his universe, he wanted to see what fighting a person who trained with Universe 10's Supreme Kai would be like. Kawasu would allow this, and Zamasu wouldn't stand a chance in this match either, especially with Cold using his golden form. Regardless, Beerus and Whis leave with Goku, Cold, and Banyu, while they mention Zamasu was suppressing his cold heart. When Kawasu then asks Zamasu if he still doesn't trust mortals, he says his inadequacy made him ashamed, but he will never forget Goku and King Cold. Then back on Earth, Future Trunks does some image training while Bulma puts some finishing touches on the time machine. Beerus and Whis then return with the others to catch them up on everything, and then Vegeta takes Trunks with him so he can test his power. Meanwhile, in Universe 10, Kawasu and Zamasu still go to view Barberry and how it develops in the next 1,000 years, but their barbaric nature still disgusts Zamasu, thus furthering his resolve to destroy all mortals. Back on Earth, Vegeta shows off Super Saiyan Blue to Trunks, which he doesn't stand a chance. Though when he says that Goku Black won't stand a chance against Goku and Vegeta, this makes Vegeta disappointed as Saiyan should continue to grow stronger, not just when there are enemies. Meanwhile on Beerus' planet, Beerus and Whis are then contacted by Zeno, which he says he wants to meet Goku. So, they have Goku come there immediately, and after he does they tell him what he needs to do, so they get ready to meet with the Supreme Kai since they can bring them to Zeno's palace. Then on Earth, Bulma has now finished the time machine, but she lets Trunks rest after his training. Then back with Beerus, he tells Goku not to say anything to Zeno about the time machine, so they then head to the sacred world of the Kai. Back in Universe 10, Zamasu still kills the barbarian that attacks him, which Kawasu berates him for. Then back with Goku, since any of the Supreme Kai could take him, Shin is still the one to do so. So, they go to meet Zeno, who reveals to Goku he just wanted a friend. He still gives Zeno the nickname Zenny, but since he is busy he promises he'll find Zeno an even better friend, which is when Zeno gives him the button for summoning him. So, they then return to Earth, and Goku, Vegeta, Cold, and Banyu then go to the future with Trunks. The Earth's resistance tries to attack Goku, but Trunks stops them, as he says this isn't Goku Black. They then go into their underground base, which is when Future Trunks reunites with Future Mai. They then all sit down for a banquet that Bulma prepared for them, and afterwards the heroes play rock, paper, scissors to see who gets to fight Goku Black, which Vegeta wins this game. So, as everyone except Mai heads off, they go and confront Goku Black, with Vegeta transforming into a Super Saiyan Blue right away. Vegeta would be pummeling Goku Black for a while, though he is unaffected by this, and he shows off his Super Saiyan Rose form. He still stabs Vegeta through the chest with an energy blade, so Goku goes Super Saiyan Blue and starts to fight him as well. Before Goku Black can finish him off with the Super Black Kamehameha, they are interrupted by the arrival of two people. This time, Zamasu still descends from the sky, but with him is King Cold Black. In this timeline, Goku Black's plan included recruiting another version of Zamasu that took King Cold's body instead. For Cold's form in this series, I had the idea to name them based on minerals or gemstones. So, for Cold Black's form, it will be called either Rose Quartz King Cold Black or Rose Quartz Cold Black, which, this is a mouthful, but then again so is Super Saiyan Rose Goku Black. I only chose this gemstone because it had Rose in the name. Goku then would start the fight with future Zamasu while Cold starts the fight with Cold Black. Eventually, however, Goku Black jumps in and starts to help fight against Goku. Since Goku was getting beaten down by the two, Future Trunks decided to jump in and help as he transformed into a Super Saiyan 2. Which, this is where my poll comes in, since it had to do with if I should give Cold original forms or not. The poll just barely came out with that I should make original forms winning. Though, as a preface, there wasn't much I was able to come up with for a Cold form appearance-wise. So far, we've just seen Frieza appear in different colors when he had new forms. If I ever think of how I can change the appearance of some of these forms, I will try to draw up and post the updated version somewhere. Regardless, we have never seen God Ki forms for the Frieza race, or at least the Golden form doesn't. As of the time of writing this, we don't know if Black Frieza has God Ki. So while there was a theory that the Saiyan God forms related to the chakras, we had no official confirmation of it, and they skipped some of the chakras anyway. So, I decided I would follow the chakras for King Cold's God forms, with the first one being based on the Muladhara, or root chakra. Ironically enough, this form would be red like how Goku's first God form, Super Saiyan God, is, as the color associated with the root chakra is red. So, the root chakra is the seed of one's physical or spiritual birth, with it also being a sign of visceral and primitive power, along with it swirling a crimson radiant heat. Some of the things this form would have as qualities is Cold feeling like he is at full health and full of energy since he would be in a state of vitality. Since he vibrates with a high level of energy, he would also be confident and enthusiastic. However, there are some downsides for this form, as it makes some emotions harder to keep in check, like his anger. This form gives him a short temper, so he can easily slip into a state of rage. Which, if he does, not only would this make it hard to concentrate on the fight, but it can also make him impulsive and aggressive, so it wouldn't be easy to be around them. This state of rage would also cause his power to drain faster, so a lack of energy can become an issue if it lasts long enough. Lastly, since I mentioned I was going to use a gemstone naming scheme, in this form he would be called Ruby King Cold. Cold in this form would become on par with Cold Black, so they are going blow for blow with each other, though Banyu is helping fight Cold Black as well. While this fight goes on, Zamasu would still reveal to the others that he is immortal, as he grabs him from behind. So, this is when Goku Black would use his Kamehameha against Goku and Trunks, knocking them unconscious while leaving Zamasu unharmed. However, a trick like this could easily be the thing to set off Cold's short temper, to the point that he falls into that state of rage. Sure, he might get a power boost from this, so he is above Cold Black, but he would be fighting recklessly, so he can't land a hit on his foe. Bonnie would be trying to get him to calm down, but Cold Black would be pummeling both. When his energy starts to plummet, Cold Black would knock the two fighters unconscious. As Cold and Goku Black get ready to finish off the four fighters, Vegeta destroys their attack with a God Final Flash after turning into a Super Saiyan Blue, but he falls unconscious too. Meanwhile, some of the people of the Resistance help Yajirobe in rescuing Goku, Trunks, Cold, and Banyu, while Mai rescues Vegeta. Mai then helps all of them return to the present, while she stays behind to hold off Zamasu, Goku Black, and Cold Black once they arrive. Bulma comes over to help Vegeta since he was injured. Regardless, in Universe 10, Zamasu and Gowasu end up watching Hits fight against Goku. Though, after he learns about the Super Dragon Balls from Gowasu, he goes to Zuno's planet and forces Zuno to tell him everything about the Super Dragon Balls. After being told about them, he also demands to be told their location and to be told about Goku and King Cold. Then back at Capsule Corporation, Bulma gives the unconscious hero Senzu Beans, and chastises Goku when he wants to go back to the future to fight immediately. Beerus, Whis, and Shin then arrive looking for Goku and Cold, as Zuno contacted Shin saying Zamasu confronted him about the Super Dragon Balls, Goku, and Cold. This is also when Vegeta passes on the information about future Zamasu, his immortality, and Super Saiyan Rose. Meanwhile in the future, Mai must work on keeping the soldiers inspired, since they were losing hope after Goku and the others lost. Regardless, Beerus, Whis, Shin, Cold, and Goku then go to Universe 10, which is when they ask Gowasu if Zamasu has been behaving weird. Gowasu says he was, but he is now enlightened, which is when Zamasu comes out with his tea, while he is also behaving calmly. After they talk with Zamasu and give Gowasu his gift, they leave but they don't go far from Universe 10. Shin asks him how it went, which is when Beerus confirms that Zamasu plans to kill Gowasu. Back at Earth, Bulma is repairing the time machine while Vegeta was training, and future Trunks was outside sulking for leaving Mai behind. When Trunks sees this, he would call his future self a coward, as he can't protect Mai by just sitting around like that. Trunks would then challenge him to a fight, as he turns Super Saiyan and punches his future self. Back in Universe 10, Zamasu uses his God Split Cut to kill Gowasu, so Whis rewinds time. They then go to Universe 10, with Whis putting a glove around Zamasu's hand so he couldn't kill Gowasu. As usual, Beerus explains to Gowasu that Zamasu tried to kill him, and after Whis removes the glove so his Keyblade is showing, Shin explains what Zamasu's plan was. However, Zamasu then prepares to attack them, but Beerus destroys Zamasu before he can. Back on Earth, future Trunks finally understood the lesson Trunks wanted him to learn, which is when Beerus and the others returned. This is when they inform him that Zamasu was killed, and Beerus says the future should be changed now, since it is different when a god eliminates a god. Before future Trunks can return to the present though, the heroes convince him to stay for dinner. After they finish eating, he prepares to return to the future, which Goku, Vegeta, Cold, and Banyu decide to go with him in case Zamasu is somehow still around. So, before they leave, Bulma gives them the remaining Senzu Beans and decides to go as well, so they then all leave together. While Bulma gives future Mai a capsule with supplies, the heroes sense Goku Black, Cold Black, and future Zamasu, so they take off towards them. When Goku tells them he found out that Zamasu used the Super Dragon Balls to create a fake Goku, Goku Black reveals that he is wrong, as he says he wished for his body to be switched with Goku, so he got to keep his heart and soul, and he killed the Goku whose body he stole. This goes for the same timeline Cold Black came from, just with him obviously stealing Cold's body instead of Goku's. They would then explain how they managed to team up and how Zamasu is still around, which is because of the Time Ring. After then fighting for a little bit, they would explain the rest of their story, which is that Goku Black arrived and killed future Gowasu. Cold Black would have arrived as well, so they then went and used the Super Dragon Balls to make Zamasu immortal, before going to the other universes and killing the other Supreme Kais. From there, they would knock away the other heroes, and they would corner Goku. While cornered, Goku Black would explain to him how he killed Goku than how he killed Chi-Chi and Goten. So, Goku still gets his rage moment from this, but this just increases Goku Black's power, so he uses his Divine Lasso, thus defeating Goku. Future Trunks eventually begins fighting with Goku Black while Cold Black and future Zamasu hold back Cold, Vegeta, and Banyu. Of course, this is when Trunks still unlocks his Super Saiyan Rage form. Once he starts fighting with Goku Black, he's putting him on the defensive, so that Zamasu and Cold Black can't intervene. Vegeta and Cold both start to fight them, with Banyu trying to help Trunks. However, Goku Black eventually gets away from Trunks and Banyu briefly, as he then helps Zamasu in jumping Vegeta, so he's defeated too. He would then repeat the process with Cold, but while Banyu and Trunks keep trying to hold them off, the heroes all retreat to the present. While Goku is put into a pod to heal, Vegeta explains to Beerus Goku Black's identity, so since Beerus was satisfied with the mystery being solved, he has Whis take him home. Eventually Goku's family arrives, along with Piccolo and Krillin, which by this point Goku has recovered, so he fills them in on everything about Goku Black. Piccolo then suggests that Goku try to learn the evil containment wave, so he goes to Kame House to have Master Roshi teach it to him, while Vegeta, Cold, and Banyu go into the hyperbolic time chambers. Meanwhile in Universe 10, Beerus goes and tells Gowasu about the future not changing and how he won't go through time to fix it, so Gowasu says he will take responsibility for it. In the future, Mai tried to shoot Goku Black with a sniper, but this didn't kill him. After he found their location, Trunks jumped in and saved her, though he is eventually defeated and knocked unconscious. This is when the heroes, along with Bulma, arrive back in the future, as she hides, and they jump into the fight to save Trunks. Goku Black then destroys the time machine, but before they can fight, they are interrupted by the arrival of Gowasu and Shin. Currently, Vegeta starts fighting with Goku Black, while Cold and Banyu fights with Cold Black, and Goku fights with future Zamasu. However, this time around, the heroes seem to be winning against the trio at first. In their fights, Goku Black and Cold Black would both make key weapons and open a rift with them. Clones of the two start to come out of the rift, but when they are attacked they reform themselves. While they continue fighting, Trunks got the urn for the evil containment wave fixed, and he tries to learn the technique, which he still returns to the battlefield and successfully seals Zamasu. Since Goku still forgot the paper amulet, Zamasu escapes. At this point, since Zamasu's energy was dropping, Cold Black and Goku Black teleport away, which also causes the rifts and clones to disappear. Since there are 3 of them in this timeline, they obviously can't all fuse, so Zamasu makes the decision to fuse with Goku Black, so they become fused Zamasu. This time, the heroes wouldn't know about the Potara, as they have never used them in this timeline, so Shin and Gowasu would explain them to the heroes. Regardless, the heroes try to hold off fused Zamasu while Trunks escapes with Mai and Bulma. Once they reach a safe location, Bulma goes back to working on repairing the time machine. Eventually, after Goku, Vegeta, Cold, and Banyu are all defeated by Zamasu, with their arms being broken, Trunks returns as a Super Saiyan Rage, though he would end up getting in a beam struggle with Zamasu, with him using a Gallic Gun. Vegeta would still join in, with the father-son Gallic Gun overpowering Zamasu's blast, though he then knocks out Vegeta with the Lightning of Absolution technique, though Goku then manages to counter his Holy Wrath when he tries to use it again, while Banyu and Cold keep trying to fight with Cold Black. Goku still manages to push his blast back, which because of hitting Zamasu in combination with his immortality not being complete after his fusion, his appearance begins to mutate, with part of his face becoming purple. While the fight continues, Zamasu eventually grabs Goku's leg and crushes it, though Goku escapes by using the Kaioken. Now that Zamasu and Cold Black would be ganging up on Cold and Banyu, they are defeated as well, so they regroup with Shin and Gowasu. At this point, Zamasu continues to power up, with his body becoming mutated like how his face did. Anyway, both Shin and Gowasu suggest the use of Potara, as it is their only option, with Gowasu explaining it lasts 1 hour. Since they both have a pair of Potara earrings, Goku and Vegeta can fuse with one pair while Cold and Banyu fuse with the other. So after taking the sensor beams, both pairs fuse, so we have Vegito and Kolyu. Vegeta would go into his Super Saiyan Blue form, while Kolyu would use her Golden form, since they wouldn't want to risk going into a state of rage by using the Ruby form. Regardless, Fused Zamasu and Cold Black would be getting dominated in these fights. Though, Fused Zamasu still gets stabbed with the Spirit Sword, but he crushes it and powers up, as he grows larger in size. Meanwhile, Bulma and Mai arrive since Bulma finished repairing the time machine, and Mai gives Trunks his sword's hilt. As usual, he makes it into a key sword as he flies off towards the battlefield. Vegeta still tries to use a final Kamehameha against Fused Zamasu, while Kolyu combines Cold's Death Beam and Banyu's Blast Cannon, so it is called the Death Cannon, which he fires it at Cold Black. This blast would finish off Cold Black, as he is nowhere near as strong as the Fused Warrior, and since he is an immortal, his soul doesn't stay around like Zamasu's did. As for Vegito, their blast didn't finish off Zamasu, but when they go to finish him off with a punch, they defuse. Kolyu would have defused as well since she also used up all her energy. As Zamasu starts to beat them down and goes to finish them off, Future Trunks comes, as he begins to gather energy from everyone. This further transforms his Chi Sword to become the Sword of Hope, which he stabs Fused Zamasu with and cuts him in half. The rest of the saga would essentially go the same, with Zamasu's soul filling the sky as he becomes an infinite Zamasu. Even when all the heroes try a combined blast against Zamasu, their attacks are nullified. Goku then finds the Xeno button in his pocket, and he uses it, which brings future Xeno to him. As Xeno goes to destroy the universe, Cold, Banyu, Vegeta, Goku, Trunks, Mai, and Bulma escape with a time machine, while Shin and Gowasu escape with the Kai Kai. Goku then returns to the future with Trunks and gets future Xeno. Then after going back to the present, he has Shin take him to Xeno. Once there, he introduces Xeno to future Xeno, and Goku's introduced to the Grand Minister. Regardless, he returns to Earth, and they all have a dinner and celebration, which is when Whis tells Trunks and Mai that he can take them to a timeline where the world wasn't destroyed, but there will be another Trunks and Mai there. They all accept this, and as they get ready to leave, Bulma gives them supplies as they say their goodbyes. Vegeta still tries to attack Trunks, but he is proud to see how strong his son has gotten as he dodges his punch. Gohan arrives as they are leaving, so he raises his fist to say goodbye, which reminds Trunks of his old teacher, so he begins to cry, while Gohan yells for him to take care of himself. Trunks accepts this and says one last goodbye, as he and Mai then return to the future. After this, Cold will head back to Beerus' planet when Whis and Beerus leave, as he has some training to do. He was embarrassed by the fact that his emotions got the best of him in his new form, so he's hoping that by training with Whis and Beerus more, they'll be able to help him perfect this form, so that he doesn't fall into a state of rage when using it. Before they leave, he apologizes for losing his cool to say the least, as it only made the fight longer and harder than it had to be. After he finishes saying this, he and Banyu then go back to Beerus' planet with the God of Destruction and his angel attendant. After Goku finished his chore of taking care of the farm, he was getting ready to go train, but this time Chi-Chi lets him, since they have more money than usual. When Goku gets in contact with Whis, he tells Goku to meet him at Castle Corporation in an hour, which, when he goes there, he still finds out Bulma is pregnant, so Vegeta still refuses to go too when Whis arrives and asks if he wants to go train. While Goku is training with him, he tries to ask about going to see Zeno, but Beerus tells him to forget about it and threatens to destroy him. As usual, Goku still distracts the God of Destruction and uses the Zeno button to teleport to Zeno's palace. Once he arrives, Grand Master takes him to Zeno and future Zeno, which he reminds Zeno of the tournament. After discussing it, the Grand Priest tells him he will get in contact with the Supreme Kais when the rules are decided, so when Goku returns to Beerus' planet, he has Whis take him to the sacred world of the Kai. This is when the Grand Minister arrives and announces the details of the tournament, the date and time it will take place, and that their team needs to have 10 fighters. He also still tells them that the tournament will take place in the world of Void. He collected the Super Dragon Balls, and that the losing universes will be erased. Since future Zeno didn't know what a tournament was, they still have the Xeno Expo, which will be against 3 fighters from Universe 9. As for the second fighter, it wouldn't be Boo since he was killed in this timeline, but Goku would likely ask King Cold to participate, since he was training with Beerus and Whis at the time as well, which he would agree. For the third fighter, Vegeta still refuses to go, but this time Gohan wouldn't be hesitant to fight, as he never stops his training in this timeline. Then they all head to the sacred world of the Kai, which after talking for a little, Shin takes him to Zeno's palace. Once there, the Grand Minister takes him to the world of Void, where he also summons all the other gods of destruction, angels, and supreme Kais. The other gods still get disgusted when they see how impudent Goku is acting, so the Grand Minister tells them this tournament was Goku's idea. Regardless, he then explains the rules. They are one-on-one matches, there isn't a time limit, and they win if their opponent surrenders or can't continue fighting. The fighters for the first match are Basil and King Cold, so they both enter the ring. The fight would go far easier for King Cold than it did for Boo, as he would be stronger than what Boo was, especially once he uses his golden form. Basil would be getting beaten down to the point that he wouldn't be able to fight anymore. The next match is still Gohan vs Lavender. However, since Gohan is far stronger in this timeline, the match ends with Gohan winning instead of it ending in a draw. The third match goes the same as usual, with Goku still defeating Bergamo. Toph then hops into the ring and challenges Goku after introducing himself as the leader of the Pride Troopers. Though their fight would go and end the same, with the Grand Minister stopping them so it doesn't end with unnecessary death. Before Toph leaves, he reveals that there's a stronger fighter, Jiren, from Universe 11. The Grand Minister then begins to make the arena for the Tournament of Power, and tells them that they have 2 days to gather their team. As they return to the sacred world of the Kai, Beerus argues with Goku over his relaxed and negligent attitude, but Whis breaks his fight up. Afterwards, they then agree to meet at Castle Corporation to come up with a strategy. The gathering of the fighters would go the same as usual, with there being some slight changes to the team in this timeline. They already have 3 fighters chosen, Goku, Gohan, and King Cold, and they go to try and recruit Vegeta. He refuses because of Bulma being pregnant, so Whis speeds up the process by taking the baby out of Bulma, so Vegeta agrees to join the tournament. King Cold would of course be the replacement for Frieza, so Goku never has to suggest recruiting Frieza. Piccolo would be recruited by Gohan, with Videl also being recruited too, since she was part of the Galactic Patrol with Gohan as well, with her being Tien's replacement. While they are gone, they would get Bulma to watch Pan for them, since they obviously can't leave her alone and they can't take her. Then, as much as I like Master Roshi and what he did in the tournament, he wouldn't be recruited in this timeline, as I don't see Android 18 joining without Krillin, so Roshi isn't on the team. But Krillin and Android 18 are. Instead, Banyu would be Master Roshi's replacement on the team since she trained with Beerus and Whis too. So, this makes Team Universe 7's members Gohan, Goku, Vegeta, King Cold, Banyu, Piccolo, Videl, Krillin, Android 17, and Android 18. I originally thought about including Android 16 on the team, since he's still alive in this timeline, but I figured he'd stay behind to watch over the island, since both he and 17 would have become National Park Rangers in this timeline. Meanwhile, in the world of Void, the gods of destruction of the exempt universes still arrive and test out the ring, but they are made to repair it. Back in Universe 7, they all gathered at Capsule Corporation as planned, and Shin goes over the strategy of sticking together to preserve stamina and to work together when fighting others. They then all leave as Whis tells the Grand Minister they're ready, so he teleports them to the world of Void. Once there, Goku talks with Hit, while Vegeta talks with Kappa and is introduced to the other Saiyans, and Cold talks with Frost. When Universe 7 arrives, Goku tries to talk with Jiren, but he tells Goku to get lost. The two Xenos greet everyone and remind them to make this tournament interesting to watch. The Grand Priest then goes over the rules again. The tournament will last 48 minutes. Fighters can't use weapons, kill, or fly. Though the fighter has wings, they can still fly. Gohan then goes over the strategy again, but then the tournament begins. The teamwork strategy doesn't last long, however, as Goku, Vegeta, Cold, Android 17, and Android 18 take off. Narayama then tries to take some of the fighters out, but Hit and Basil stops them. Universe 10's Rillaboom then tries to attack Basil, but he easily counters this and knocks her out of the ring, making her the first fighter eliminated, which, Rumshi berates her for this, as she forgot to use her wings. While some of the Universe 9 fighters surround the Universe 7, Basil goes on to fight Nappa, but he fails to knock him out of the ring. Goku is grabbed by Nink, and he backs up to take them both out of the ring, but Goku goes Super Saiyan Blue, thus overpowering Nink, so he's the only one eliminated. The trio of danger then surrounds Goku, so he uses a ki barrier to counteract Lavender's poison. Meanwhile, Rosella tries to attack Goku from behind, but Cold is easily able to stop this attack. However, instead of toying with him like Frieza did, Cold just knocks Rosella out of the ring right away. Vegeta then hops in to help out Goku, since he is struggling with taking on the three dogs, but the rest of the Universe 9 joins in the fight after Vegeta hops in, though Hop accidentally attacks Lavender, which distracts Comfrey and Chapel, so Goku goes Super Saiyan and knocks both out of the ring. Vegeta then knocks Hop out of the ring after unleashing a combo attack on her. Even though Oregano traps one of Vegeta's hands, he goes Super Saiyan and knocks both his Hop and Oregano out of the ring. In the meantime, Android 18 knocks Sorel out of the ring, which only leaves Universe 9 with 3 fighters left. The trio of Danger then unleash a Triangle Danger Beam on Goku and Vegeta, but they both go Super Saiyan Blue and knock them out of the ring by using the final Kamehameha combo attack. So, since all of Universe 9 was eliminated, Sidra, Ro, and the rest of Universe 9 is erased by the Xenos. This shocks everyone for a little bit, but Xeno wonders why they stopped, so the Grand Minister tells them once they regain their composure they should start fighting again. Eventually when the fights do start again, Potamo and Hit approach Vegeta and Goku, with Potamo starting to fight Vegeta. Though before he can be thrown out of the ring, Automagetta intervenes in their fight. Meanwhile, both Krillin and Banyu take out Diem together, with Krillin cutting his wings and Banyu using a blast to knock him out of the ring. Then back with Vegeta, Potamo, and Automagetta, their fight goes differently. They didn't know about Automagetta's weakness to insults, since he was defeated before by King Cold just throwing him out of the ring, so he doesn't have the earplugs in this time. So, Vegeta would likely still insult Automagetta and be able to knock him out of the ring. Then after Automagetta is eliminated, he can knock Potamo out of the ring like how Gohan did, by punching him so he isn't touching the ground and using a blast to force him out of the ring. Then when Android 18 was fighting Shosa, he ends up playing dead and almost knocks her out of the ring, though Krillin saves her, and they then knock Shosa off the stage together. Majora then ends up attacking Krillin in 18, but he still knocks him out of the ring by using his stinky shoe and then blasting him with the Kamehameha. However, Krillin is eliminated by Frost this time, as Cold obviously wouldn't have told him to eliminate the Earthlings of his team like Frieza did. Kappa then approaches Vegeta, and when Marisam and Negreasy try to attack him, he easily knocks him off the stage. Then he turns Super Saiyan and challenges Vegeta to a fight. Meanwhile, Hit destroys Narayama's body, and when he ignores Hit telling him to jump off, Hit uses a time skip and a flick to knock him out of the ring. Kale is then attacked by Methiop and Nappa, so Caulifla jumps in to save her. After turning Super Saiyan, Caulifla then easily knocks Nappa out of the ring. After Jimizu tried to attack Goku, Caulifla confronts him to teach her about Super Saiyan Blue. He tells her she isn't ready for this, and she ends up going Super Saiyan Grade 3. This is when Goku suggests trying for Super Saiyan 2, and he shows her the form, which he quickly achieves. While they are fighting, both disregard Kale, which causes her to cry, but her sorrow quickly turns into hatred for Goku. Kale then transforms into her legendary Super Saiyan form and almost knocks Caulifla off the ring, but Hit saves her. Goku then goes Super Saiyan Blue to fight Kale, but he's easily being beaten, though she eliminates Methiop in the process. Wanda confronts her and uses Justice Whip, but she easily breaks out of this and knocks him out of the arena. Jiren then intervenes and sends her flying, but Caulifla catches her. Hit then confronts Jiren, but when Goku steps in, he and Caulifla fall back. Toph briefly steps in, but he and Jiren then retreat, leaving the other Pride Troopers to deal with Goku. Meanwhile, both Banyu and Videl team up and they take out Sapricio together. They then regroup with Gohan and Piccolo, while Cold knocks Murichin out of the ring, which briefly annoys Vegeta since he was going to fight him. Then Goku is caught in a bear hug by Tupper, who then amplifies his weight, but Goku is saved by 18 and Krillin, as 18 throws Tupper out of the ring after they defeat him. Kokop then steals Caulifla, Kale, and the other Pride Troopers as they get in a beam struggle. Kale then turns into her controlled Super Saiyan form during this, though she does eventually go into her legendary Super Saiyan form while Caulifla goes Super Saiyan 2. This allows him to eliminate Kasserel, Kettle, and Zore from the tournament. Kokop then steals herself, but Krillin and 18 easily throw her out of the ring. Brienne de Chateau, Senkaku, and Sue Rosa try to transform, but 17 stops them, though he is still convinced to let them finish. After they transform into Ribrianne, Kakunza, and Rosie, The rest of Universe 7 agrees to split up since the arena is getting more destroyed. Ribrianne starts to fight with Vegeta, but she ends up knocking Dirasum off the stage during this fight. Goku then starts to fight with Rosie, while 17 fights with Kakunza. Piccolo still saves Kakunza from being eliminated, but 17 then knocks Piccolo out of the ring. Afterwards, he then knocks Kakunza out of the ring as well, which angers Ribrianne. Goku and 17 then continue to fight Ribrianne and Rosie, but Shimizu eventually comes and rescues them. In the meantime, Obni and Rubal then challenge Gohan, Videl, and Piccolo to a fight, though, at the same time, Shimizu ends up knocking Zerkor out of the ring. Regardless, Rubal has the upper hand at first, but Piccolo still uses a Hell Zone grenade, which knocks him out of the ring. Though Obni would be overpowering Gohan and Videl at first, but they transform into their potential unleashed, / ultimate forms, as Videl likely had her potential unlocked at the same time Gohan did. Regardless, they both knock Obni out of the ring with a combined blast. As Universe 10 is about to be destroyed, Gohan and Videl see Obni's locket, so they mourn Universe 10 as well. Since all of Universe 10 was eliminated, Rumshi, Kawasu, and the rest of Universe 10 is erased by the Xenos. Dispo then begins to fight with Hit, though he's getting beaten at first, but he slowly starts to adapt to Dispo's speed. Top then orders Kensai to jump in, which is also when Super Saiyan God Goku jumps in. Goku and Hit eventually begin to get the upper hand, as Hit tricks Dispo by pretending to use a time skip. He then does use a time skip to appear by Kensai, thus knocking him out of the ring. Top then gets Dispo to retreat, while Hit decides not to fight Goku, as a way of saying thanks for helping him out. Clay would then try to fight with Banyu. Since her power of seduction wouldn't work here like it might have against Master Roshi, Banyu easily knocks Kawaii out of the ring. Next, Darkori would try to fight Banyu, but even without the evil containment wave, Banyu would easily be strong enough to eliminate Darkori too. Ganos would still want revenge on her for eliminating his teammates, so he would be the next to attack her. However, even when Ganos transforms, he still doesn't stand much of a chance and is eliminated too, since Roshi wasn't there to nearly die. Goku isn't distracted, so he would be able to knock Majikaio out of the ring after he turns Super Saiyan Blue to escape from his grip. Meanwhile, Dr. Roto approaches Gohan, Videl, and Piccolo, but before he can show off his ability, he is blasted away by a strong ki blast. So, they all look for the attacker, and they eventually find out that Prum is just the mirror while Harmira is the attacker. This time, however, it's Krillin that goes after Harmira, him using the destructive disc to destroy his cover. As usual, though, Harmira destroys the ground beneath them, but Krillin drags Harmira down with him, so they are both eliminated. Vegeta and Goku then corner Prum, but when Dr. Roto grabs onto Prum, Vegeta knocks both Prum and Dr. Roto out of the ring with a Gallic gun. Since Frost wasn't put up to ambushing the Earthlings by cold, Vegeta never ends up fighting with Frost, so none of Universe 7 is eliminated like Roshi was after that fight. However, Ribrianne and Goku still fight since she's determined to defeat him. Other fights happen during this time as well, such as Toph knocking Cabba away. Then when Gohan and Videl were fighting with Barretta, Shimizu suddenly attacks them. The two would stand a chance against Shimizu though, since originally he was attacking Gohan's blind spots, but they were able to cover each other's blind spots. So, after tiring out Shimizu, they would be able to knock him out of the ring with a combined blast. Meanwhile, Cold would go and talk with Frost, as he would want to test his strength. In this timeline, it's likely Cold had Whis briefly taken to Universe 6 so he could keep his promise of training Frost. So, he would want to test his strength after that training was done. However, there isn't a reason to show in the full power form like Frieza did. Cold likely taught Frost to use the Golden Form, so when Cold transforms into his Golden Form, Frost would turn into his Golden Form as well. Also, by this point, while he still has a while to go before he's completely good, Frost likely took Cold's advice about actually being a hero to heart. Regardless, they would fight evenly for a little bit since Cold was trying to test his power, though Cold was suppressing his power. Though, he didn't show off his Ruby form to Frost before knocking him out of the ring, to show that there is a higher level of power Frost can strive for. Which, I don't see Frost getting erased by the Xenos after this, since he wouldn't be angry at King Cold for knocking him out of the ring. After all, Cold didn't betray Frost in this fight like Frieza did, as Cold and Frost weren't working together like Frieza and Frost were. Goku is still fighting Ribrianne currently, and she turns into her Super Ribrianne form while Goku goes Super Saiyan Blue, though she is eventually knocked to Jiren's feet, but he ignores her as he sets his sights on Goku. Their fight would begin the same, with him reverting to his base form as he uses a Kamehameha. Jiren blocks it, so he then tries going Super Saiyan, but his punches don't affect Jiren. Next he goes Super Saiyan 2, but he's unfazed by this as well. Next he tries going Super Saiyan God, which forces Jiren to block his attacks with a single finger. Every other fight is stopped at this point, but Goku still goes Super Saiyan Blue, but Jiren still has the upper hand. Even when he uses the Kaioken times 20 on top of Super Saiyan Blue, he can't do anything, so he resorts to using the Spirit Bomb, which everyone from Universe 7 gives him energy except Vegeta. However, Jiren manages to push the Spirit Bomb back at Goku, with Goku seemingly being killed, but since it was by his own blast, Jiren is disqualified. Though, the ground begins to shake, and the Pillar of Light appears as Goku emerges in his Ultra Instinct Sign form, which the gods are shocked to hear Beerus say this is Ultra Instinct, since they didn't think a mortal could use it. Regardless, after fighting Jiren for a little bit, Goku's form runs out, so Jiren blasts him away. Though, he is suddenly attacked by Hit, since he thought Jiren would be open after finishing Goku. While Goku was on the ground, Cold came over and blasted him to transfer some of his ki. Hit then fights with Jiren, but he is able to outspeed his time skip, so Hit still traps him in the time prison. However, Jiren eventually breaks out of this, and he knocks Hit out of the ring by using a ki blast. Jiren then returns to Toph and Dispo, as he tells them the rest is up to them. Now, half of the time for the tournament has passed, as Jiren returns to his meditation. Goku is still recovering, but he is assaulted by Koitsuke, Ponchia, and Barbaretta. Meanwhile, Gohan, Piccolo, and Videl end up fighting with Salanel and Pilima. Caulifla, Kale, and Cabba then were discussing Goku's fight with Jiren, but they are attacked by Mana. Cabba has the two others leave, while he turns into a Super Saiyan to take Mana on. Cabba is eventually knocked away, but Vegeta saves him. This is where he still makes a promise to revive Universe 6 if they win, with Cabba promising to revive Universe 7 if they win. Cabba then goes back to fighting with Mana, which he unlocks Super Saiyan 2 and knocks her out of the ring. Afterwards, Vegeta goes on to fight with Toph, while Cabba remains in the tournament, as I don't see Cold ambushing him like Frieza did. Then, when Goku is getting pushed back by the Universe 3 fighters, Caulifla saves him. She then gives Super Saiyan 2 and challenges Goku to a fight. However, since Cabba is still around, he likely finds Kale and Caulifla while they are with Goku. She still asks Goku to teach her to go Super Saiyan 3, which after he goes Super Saiyan 2, Caulifla calls Kale and Cabba in to join the fight so they can learn Super Saiyan 3 as well. As Cabba goes Super Saiyan 2 and Kale goes Super Saiyan, Goku would be getting beat down at first. Goku briefly demonstrates Super Saiyan 3, but he can't hold it for long. After he reverts to Super Saiyan 2, Kale powers up to her legendary Super Saiyan form. Caulifla still talks to her while she is in this form, but this calms her down enough to go into her controlled Super Saiyan 2 form. Goku would be struggling even more here, as he is being beat down by the three Saiyans. Cato Pesper would then approach Cold and Banyu, as he begins to transform. Although he's briefly interrupted, he still turns into his whirlwind speed mode. However, instead of them ignoring him like Frieza did, they fight with him. In this mode he can't do much, so he transforms into his raging battle mode. Even then he can't do anything to Cold and Banyu, so he resorts to transforming into his ultimate mode, which, even when Cato Pesper is in this mode, Cold and Banyu easily knock him off the ring. Anyway, back with Goku. He goes Super Saiyan God as he continues to fight the Universe 6 Saiyans. Goku would be winning at this point, so Kale and Caulifla use the Potara to become Kefla, which Goku would be getting beaten down by both Kefla and Cabba. Goku eventually goes Super Saiyan Blue, which pushes Kefla into her Super Saiyan form. Even when he is forced to use the Kaioken, he was still struggling against them, though he is still pushed into his Ultra Instinct Saiyan form by Kefla and Cabba. In reaction to this, Kefla powers up to his Super Saiyan 2 to take Goku on. Their fight still ends with Kefla using the Gigantic Burst, while Cabba combines it with his Gallic Cannon. His power doesn't help much though, as Goku still manages to eliminate Cabba, along with Caulifla and Kale, since they defuse as they fell out of the ring. After this, Goku then collapses into his base form. 18 then went to try and help Goku, but 17 helped her fix her leg before she could. Ribrianne and Rosie then tried to fight Goku, but 17 and 18 interfere. Ribrianne almost managed to eliminate 18, but she and 17 were able to eliminate Rosie instead. From here, Ribrianne absorbs love from her teammates and turns into her lovely love form. Regardless, after Krillin shouting helps 18 break free, 17 and 18 managed to take her down with 18 punching a hole through her, which this caused her to revert to her Brienne de Chateau form, while Shin says the power of 18 and Krillin's love prevailed, so she shoots a beam at him and threatens him. Sirloin, Zarbuto, and Rabanra then corner Goku, as they transform like Kakunza, Rosie, and Ribrianne did. Meanwhile, Gohan, Videl, and Piccolo continue to fight with Salanel and Pilima, but they start to grow faster and stronger. They realize they fused with the other Namekians of their universe, so Gohan and Videl go into their ultimate forms. Back with Goku, 17 and 18 come to his aid, while the Universe 2 fighters use the pretty black hole technique. Goku turns Super Saiyan Blue and uses a Kamehameha against them. Gohan and Videl then use a Kamehameha against the Namekians as well, with Piccolo using his special beam cannon. Both Goku's blast and the combined blast of Gohan, Videl, and Piccolo cause the Universe 2 and Universe 6 fighters to be eliminated. So, since all of Universe 2 was eliminated, Hellas, Pell, and the rest of Universe 2 is erased by the Xenos. And since all of Universe 6 was also eliminated, Champa, Fuwa, and the rest of Universe 6 is erased by the Xenos. Though, right before Champa is erased, he calls out to Beerus and sticks his tongue out, which causes Beerus to wish that Champa would have said something else before being erased. At this point, something almost knocks Vegeta, Gohan, and Videl out of the ring, but unfortunately Piccolo was only able to save Vegeta and Gohan. So, Beerus asks Videl what happened, and she has no idea, but she says it felt like something attacked her feet. Though, Gohan and Piccolo still figure out that it is an invisible enemy, so Gohan uses Ki Blast to cover them with dust, which reveals that they are Gami-Salas. So, since Piccolo can now see him, he quickly eliminates Gami-Salas. Zianka attacks next and creates illusions of erased fighters, but Piccolo sees through this trick. Piccolo eventually spots Zianka and easily blows him out of the arena. Afterwards, Piccolo thinks there is another invisible fighter, so he tries to attack them, but is confused when none of his hits connect. In his confusion, he is caught off guard and then knocked out of the ring. 17 is then attacked by this mysterious fighter named the Mom, and even though 17 is almost eliminated, Goku saves him. He then finds out that the Mom is a tiny bug, and with Goku punching the ground, 17 traps the Mom in a tiny barrier and kicks him out of the ring. Since all of Universe 4 was eliminated, Quatella, Kuru, and the rest of Universe 4 is eliminated by the Xenos. Then, since there are only 3 universes left, the Universe 3 fighters are ordered to go after Universe 7, when Koitsuke, Ponchia, and Barbaretta try to attack Goku and Vegeta. Gohan steps in so they can save their stamina. Meanwhile, 17 and 18 use their infinite stamina to wear down Biara, and after his armor cracks and he collapses, 18 knocks him out of the ring. After Plan X is ordered, Koitsuke, Ponchia, and Barbaretta merge into Koisieretta. Gohan was struggling with fighting them, but Goku and Vegeta were recovered enough by now, so they turned Super Saiyan Blue and rushed back in. However, they were just buying time for Gohan to blast Koisieretta, and when he is almost eliminated, Paparoni tells him to unleash their final tactic. Paparoni then merges with Koisieretta, which causes them to become Anilaza. Even when all of Universe 7 attacks as a group, Anilaza manages to evade all their attacks. Eventually, 17 is almost eliminated, so 18 jumps in the way and kicks him back into the ring, sacrificing herself so he stays in the tournament. While the rest of Universe 7 uses a combined blast to counter Anilaza's blast, 17 surrounds himself in the barrier and jumps through his blast, shattering his energy reactor, which allows the combined blast to push Anilaza out of bounds as he then defuses. Since all of Universe 3 was eliminated, Moscow, Aiur, and the rest of Universe 3 is erased by the Xenos. However, before they are erased, Mule comes out of his hatch and thanks Campari for supporting him. Goku then starts to fight Jiren again as a Super Saiyan Blue, but Vegeta then jumps in to fight Jiren. While this was going on, Cole and Banyu were fighting Dispo, though he was dodging their attacks. Lastly, Gohan and 17 teamed up to fight Toph, with Gohan warning 17 about his big arms. After fighting Jiren for a while, Vegeta uses the final flash against Jiren, but he comes out unscathed. Jiren then uses a blast against Vegeta in return, which knocks him to the ground. Goku then takes over fighting Jiren so that Vegeta can recover a little bit. Goku eventually resorts to using the Kaioken, while Vegeta remembers his promise to Kappa, so he swears to overcome his limits in his own way. So, Vegeta then transforms into the Super Saiyan Blue evolved form, and they attack Jiren together, which their uncoordinated attacks help confuse Jiren. During Cold and Banyu's fight with Dispo, he eventually turns into his true golden form. Dispo was being beaten at first, however, when Dispo goes into his super maximum lightspeed mode, he starts to beat down Cold and Banyu again. Their fight continues for a while. Since trapping Dispo didn't work, Banyu grabs him from behind. This gives Cold a chance to knock Dispo out of the ring, but this blast eliminates Banyu as well. Meanwhile, 17 and Gohan get into a beam struggle with Toph, so Cold starts to shoot him in the back with death beams. This allows his beam to overpower Toph, but he isn't eliminated, as a battered Toph gets back up and declares he no longer needs justice. Toph then turns into his Gauntlet Destruction mode and then starts to fight with Cold, unlike Frieza. However, Cold will do far better in this fight since he was stronger than what Frieza was, though he still can't beat Toph's Gauntlet Destruction form, so he resorts to using his Ruby form. Fortunately for Cold, he did manage to overcome the weakness of it, slipping into a state of rage through his previous training with Beerus and Whis. So, this time, he can use his form to its full extent, and he gets the upper hand over Toph. Belmont orders him to just destroy all of Cold's attacks, but Cold easily dodges these blasts while he starts to beat Toph down. Toph ends up using his Spear of Destruction, while Cold uses his Ruby Death Ball, as they end up in a sort of beam struggle. However, this blast is too much for Toph to destroy, as he is enveloped in the Crimson Ball of Ki. Toph then falls out of the ring, much to the shock of Belmont, while Cold reverts to his fourth form, since he used most of his energy against Toph. Since all his teammates are gone, Jiren decides to get serious, as he knocks Goku away from him. He then starts to fight with Vegeta one-on-one, which Vegeta would be getting beaten down. Eventually, this would force Vegeta to have to use his final explosion like he did against Toph. Unfortunately, this time around, it doesn't eliminate his opponent, it just rips Jiren's outfit to shreds, but he is basically left unscathed. Jiren then tries to eliminate Vegeta, so Goku, Gohan, and 17 jump in with assisting him. However, they are eventually knocked to the ground, so Cold jumps back in and briefly goes into his Ruby form. While he gets some hits in at first, Jiren eventually powers up enough to knock him away, as he falls unconscious. As 17 tries to protect the others, Belmont asks what he would wish for, which is when he mentions the cruise. This is also when Belmont goes on to explain Jiren's backstory after 17 asks what Jiren would wish for if he won. Regardless, 17 uses his barriers to slow down Jiren's blast so Goku and Vegeta could recover more, but he is seemingly destroyed by the blast. So that they can recover for longer, Gohan challenges Jiren to a fight, as he goes into his ultimate form. While he can hold him off for a little bit, it doesn't last for long, as Gohan runs out of energy and is blasted out of the ring by Jiren. The rest of the tournament essentially goes the same, with Vegeta challenging Jiren on his own. He can't even go Super Saiyan, and he uses the final flash, but it doesn't harm Jiren. He was impressed though by Vegeta's pride in that he kept getting back up. he would still be confused about what kept Vegeta going, as he tells him he doesn't understand what it's like to fight for others. Regardless, Vegeta is then knocked out of the ring, and as he falls he gives Goku the rest of his energy. Even as a Super Saiyan Blue, Goku couldn't do much against Jiren. However, he then taps into Ultra Instinct Sign again, as he lands some heavy blows on Jiren. They fight for a little while, and as Goku almost falls out of the ring, he unlocks his perfected Ultra Instinct form. This would still cause Jiren to go into his full power form, but it still ends up with Goku about to blast him out of the ring. Before he can, however, he collapses because of the toll Ultra Instinct had on his body. Before Goku is eliminated, Cold turns into his Ruby form and saves him from elimination. This is also when 17 comes out of hiding, thus revealing that he survived his sacrifice earlier. 17 and Cold would fight with Jiren for a little bit, with Cold eventually having to drop to his golden form, though he can't maintain that for long either, so he reverts to his fourth form. Goku gets back up at this point and he teams up with Cold in an assault against Jiren, as he flickers in and out of his Super Saiyan form, which they eliminate Jiren, but they are also eliminated at the same time. Since all of Universe 11 was eliminated, Velmod, Kai, and the rest of Universe 11 is erased by the Xenos. However, as Jiren is about to be erased, his teammates still thank him and Goku says he'd like to fight him again, which baffles him, but he smiles before he is erased. 17 is then announced the winner, so he tells the Grand Minister that he wishes for all the erased universes to be restored. Everyone then returns to Universe 7, with them going to Capsule Corporation to celebrate. While there, Goku, Vegeta, and Cold go off to spar with each other, with the two Saiyans going Super Saiyan Blue, and Cold going into his golden form. As a quick preface, this will be the last part of the Good King Cold series for now, as I have been following the anime version, and this is where the anime stopped. I also haven't seen Superhero yet, but since that seemingly takes place after things like the Moro and Granola saga, I'm going to wait to cover it as well. Regardless, with the Tournament of Power being over, Cold returned to running his empire, which Broly had been in his forces for a while now. Since Paragus did indeed drop the whole revenge against Vegeta idea after a while, Cold thinks it would be fine to introduce Broly to Goku and Vegeta. This would mainly be so he could keep his promise to Goku about introducing him to strong fighters from around the universe, and he thinks he could help Broly as well. Also, Senta mentions that throughout Broly's time in Cold's forces, he likely would have met Cheelai and Lemmo still, so we would likely still get some of the moments between them that we saw in the movie, as Broly would still get along with them. Regardless, back on Earth, Goku and Vegeta were sparring together at Bulma's summer house. Beerus and Whis were there too, but he gets annoyed from the sound interrupting his nap, so they take a break to eat. However, they aren't interrupted by Trunks calling to say the Dragon Balls are stolen, as Frieza obviously wouldn't be around to have his men steal them, so they also don't find out Bulma's wish of becoming 5 years younger. Back on Cold's ship, Broly and Paragus would have gotten their new sets of armor a while ago. The major difference here is that Broly would have lost the collar a while ago since Cold didn't agree with the use of it to control Broly. Eventually when he meets Cheelai, she'd ask why he didn't put on the armor jacket, as she explains her stretchy, though she'd also still ask why he doesn't take off the pelt, with him still getting angry when she touches it. When Broly starts to tell the story of the pelt, Paragus is softened up by this time, so he doesn't force Broly to stop talking about it, so they would hear the story about Ba earlier than they normally did. Regardless, it's likely the Cold Force soldier would try to approach Cheelai and hit on her, with Broly being suspicious of him. Lemmo tries to get him to go on his way by offering to pay for his meal, but he punches Lemmo out of the way, which angers Broly. Because if Cold is held, Broly would have better control of his anger, but he still approaches the soldier. His attacks do nothing to Broly, and instead of threatening his life, Broly remains in control and knocks him unconscious. Cheelai and Lemmo would still hang out with Broly when Paragus was asked to go see Cold. He'd still be taught by them how to eat the snack bars, since he tried to eat the wrapper. Meanwhile, when Paragus meets with Cold, he would explain to him about taking Broly to Earth so that he could meet Goku and Vegeta, along with him explaining his promise to Goku, and how he thought this could help Broly get stronger, but also get his anger under control even more. When Cold's ship arrives on Earth, Goku and Vegeta would notice the other high power level with him, and they would be curious who this was. Regardless, when Cold and Blanya exits the ship, Cold would have Paragus and Broly follow him, as he walks over to the Saiyans. He then introduces Goku, Vegeta, Paragus, and Broly to each other, which they would recognize Broly and Paragus as Saiyans right away. Regardless, Paragus would at first still have a brief thought of his revenge plan, but he would quickly squash his feelings down. He has been having a good and peaceful life in the Cold Force, so he wouldn't want to risk ruining that now. Anyway, when Goku asks what brings him there, Cold will say he was fulfilling his promise of bringing strong fighters for Goku to meet, as he brought Broly for them to spar with. Cold will likely explain who these two Saiyans are and how long they have been in his army, which would cause him to touch on Paragus' old revenge plan. Though he would mention that Paragus did drop that plan, and even if he didn't, Vegeta wouldn't care about it anyway. Cold will notice that Broly was reaching for a fight, so he says that they can begin. So, after being given permission to start the fight, Broly would charge at Vegeta. Vegeta and Broly trade blows at first, though Vegeta does eventually get pressured by his attacks. While Cold and Paragus were observing this battle, Paragus mentions that Vegeta seems accustomed to fighting. This is when Cold will tell him that they are no stranger to combat, while Broly only ever sparred with Paragus before they were rescued from Wampa. Back with Vegeta and Broly, Vegeta would eventually be pushed to going Super Saiyan, which shocks Broly. Cold would have known that Broly couldn't go Super Saiyan though, so he isn't shocked. Paragus was shocked to see the Super Saiyan of Legend. He charges at Vegeta again, but he has had a major disadvantage in terms of both strength and speed. However, as the fight goes on, Broly gets stronger to the point he can tank a punch to the face. Broly then continues to get stronger as he starts to put Vegeta on the defensive. Vegeta then retreats upwards and calms down as he turns into a Super Saiyan God. This again causes Vegeta to gain the advantage, which causes Broly to be fearful of him as Vegeta effortlessly dodges his attacks. Vegeta then catches one of his punches and sends Broly flying through the nearby mountains on the island. Paragus then falls to his knees since he thinks Broly reached the extent of his power, so Cold suggests they return to their ship. Paragus then tries to call for Broly, but he isn't listening to him. Even though Broly was trained to have better control over his anger, it isn't perfect, as him getting beat down by Vegeta like this started to draw out his anger. Even with Goku yelling at Vegeta to stop, he ignores him and blasts Broly down into the water. This is when Broly awakens his wrath state, as he rises from the water and screams in fury. Vegeta then gets a hit on Broly, but he comes out unscathed from this. Broly would then punch Vegeta and send him flying, with Goku starting to worry about it while Vegeta is feeling pressured. This form catches Cold's attention, so he asks Paragus what is happening, which when he says he believes Broly achieved the power of the Great Ape but in his human form. Even though this form doesn't have the disadvantages of the Great Ape form, Paragus speculates that nothing can be done to control Broly now, which Broly then starts to punch Vegeta through mountains like what was being done to him earlier. So, as Vegeta was getting beaten down, Goku steps in and says it's his turn now. Goku interrupting just angers Broly more, but Goku starts to warm up as they trade blows, and he fires a Kamehameha at Broly. Of course, Broly isn't fazed by this, so he punches Goku down into the mountain. Broly then followed him and continued to pummel him, which Goku couldn't keep up, so he turns Super Saiyan, even though he's still outmatched. He briefly gets a one-up on Broly by teleporting behind him, though Broly quickly attacks him again and sends Goku flying into a mountain, and before he can land another hit, Goku turns into a Super Saiyan God. This time, however, Goku doesn't try to paralyze him to get him to switch sides, as they are already on the same side. This is just a sparring match. Broly then tries to punch Goku, but he manages to grab his wrist and slam him on the ground. This causes the ground to shake, and as the ground beneath Cold's ship gets damaged, he has his men take the ship away from there, with Bulma going with him so she isn't caught in the crossfire. Now with the ship gone and Bulma no longer there, Cold says that they are able to fight without any worries now. As their fight continues, Broly gets angrier, and even though Goku is landing hits, they aren't doing anything to him. Broly was seemingly getting larger too, and he eventually tries to stomp Goku into the ground, but he rolls out of the way. When he gets back to his feet and tries to attack Broly with a gravity bash, Broly crushes this attack in his hand. Broly then grabs his ankle and slams Goku around into the ground, before grabbing him by the face and dragging him through a wall. This causes Goku to not be able to move, while Broly screams in unbridled rage. Meanwhile, Piccolo was far away, and he calls out to Goku telepathically, as he sensed he was fighting someone formidable, with Goku explaining that it's just a sparring match, and Piccolo will be his escape plan. This causes Piccolo to realize he must be tough if Goku has an escape plan, but regardless, Goku then stands up and turns into a Super Saiyan Blue. Even though they are fighting closer now, Goku is still struggling, as Broly punches him to the ground. Broly then uses his Planet Crusher technique against Goku, which ends up changing the landscape around them, as it releases the magma beneath them. Paragus would again fall to his knees as Goku has the advantage, and Cold asks if this is as far as he can go, which Paragus says yes. However, Cold will remember Goku telling him how he became Super Saiyan through the anger and grief of his best friend dying. So, Cold has a plan, and tells Paragus that they are going to fake his death. Paragus might be reluctant at first to do this, but Cold reassures him that this will help his son get stronger, so Paragus agrees. Cold then pretends to panic and calls out to Broly, saying that his father was killed by a stray blast. This causes Broly to become a Super Saiyan for the first time, and when he uses Blaster Meteor, Goku can't fight back. Vegeta realizes Goku can't handle him alone, so he turns Super Saiyan Blue and jumps into the fight as well, which, they use the Gallic Kamehameha combo attack, but this still does nothing to Broly, so they then fly past Cold, which he fights back with Broly while Goku teleports himself and Vegeta to where Piccolo was. As they crash land beside Piccolo, they revert to their base form, with Goku saying he'll completely fill in Piccolo later. He then asks if Piccolo has any sensor beams, but unfortunately he doesn't. Goku then asks Vegeta if he knows about the fusion dance, and he does, so Goku shows off the poses for it. Vegeta refuses to do this dance, but Goku says it's their only option, as they don't have any Potara earrings with them. Vegeta still refuses, so Goku uses his trump card of asking if he is really fine with letting Broly destroy the Earth, which will also kill Bulma and his family. Even though this embarrasses Vegeta, he relents and agrees to do the fusion dance with Goku. Back with Cold, he was getting beat down by Broly while he was in his fourth form, so he then decides to break out his golden form, but even then he was getting beaten down. From there, Cold had to use his Ruby form, which does give him the upper hand, at least at first. However, Broly would still adapt to this over time, with his power continuing to grow. So, this is where I decided for Cold to show off something new he has been working on while training with Beerus and Whis. This would be continuing down the line of Cold's God Key forms being based on the chakras. Since the last one was based on the root chakra, this one would be based on the Swadhisthana, or sacral chakra. Sacral chakra moves from the POW, with the root chakra, into a sophisticated stage of creativity. This is also the chakra that allows us to sculpt our rawness to refine ourselves into a creative beauty. Personality-wise, this would be an uplifting form that would encourage and stimulate his feelings of creativity and spontaneity. We'd also have a much more joyful and positive mood in this form. His energy would also be characterized more as flowing and flexible. However, there are downsides as well, since spending too long in this form can affect his way of thinking. His joyful mood can go too far and develop into feelings of frivolity and immaturity. This means he wouldn't be taking the fight seriously anymore, and he would be behaving like a younger and less experienced fighter. Appearance-wise, since the sacral chakra is orange, he would be orange, along with him having a flowing orange aura. Since I was basing his form names on gemstones, this one would be called Topaz Cold, as Topaz is an orange gemstone. Regardless, this form would give Cold the advantage for a while, as his golden form was like Super Saiyan Blue in power, so he would be far stronger than that now. So, Cold would be able to stall Broly long enough for Goku and Vegeta to return. Banyu would also help Cold in trying to stall Broly, so that makes it slightly harder for Broly to catch up. Back with Goku and Vegeta, Piccolo and Goku would demonstrate the fusion dance first, which Vegeta is mortified to see this dance. Regardless, they try it after the demonstration ends, but their fingertips don't exactly touch, which Piccolo notices immediately. This causes them to end up as a chubby fusion, and Piccolo tells them what they did wrong, but they must wait 30 minutes until they can defuse. The next time they try it, they end up in an emaciated form, as Piccolo says their pose wasn't exactly symmetrical, so they must wait another 30 minutes. The third time they try it, they get it right, as Goku and Vegeta fuse successfully, much to Piccolo's satisfaction. The fusion then struggles to come up with a name for himself, which irritates Piccolo, but the fusion eventually decides on the name Gogeta, and then he heads off towards the battlefield. Gogeta then arrives in front of Cold and Banyu, who lie indented in the side of a mountain, as Broly has lost interest in smacking the two around, as Cold did let his Topaz form get the best of him, so he fell into a state of immaturity. This caused him to fight sloppily, which led to Broly getting bored of this fight. Cold will recognize that they must have used the fusion dance, since this being looks different than when they used the Potara before. Regardless, Gogeta then teleports to Broly's new location, where he had started fighting with Beerus and Whis, so they were both there. Whis was lazily dodging his attacks while Beerus was getting aggravated by Broly disturbing him, though, before Beerus can erase him with the destruction energy he was charging, Gogeta appears in front of them. Whis realizes who this was instantly, and he explains who they are to Beerus, which shocks them both that they were able to fuse without the Potara. Broly then comes back and starts to fight with Gogeta, though he quickly realizes he needs to transform. After he goes Super Saiyan, he fires his Kamehameha, while Broly fires his gigantic Omega Storm, which when they collide it causes the fabric of reality to crack and shatter like glass. They continue to fight while Broly powers up into his legendary Super Saiyan form. This proves to be too much for Gogeta, so he goes straight into his Super Saiyan Blue form. They crash through different dimensions while fighting, and they eventually clash hard enough that they end up back in the real world. Broly tries destroying everything nearby with a gigantic catastrophe, and then Gogeta tries to finish him off with a Stardust Breaker, but it fails. Gogeta then dodges Broly's attacks while charging a Kamehameha, but he holds back slightly this time. He wasn't trying to kill Broly, he was just trying to knock him unconscious, which his blast would connect with Broly and succeed in knocking him out. Gogeta then defuses with Cold and Banyu approaching Goku and Vegeta. Paragus would start pretending to be dead now since Broly was defeated and go to them as well. Paragus then helps take Broly back to Cold's ship, where he is put in a healing pod. Cold would then go on to thank Goku and Vegeta for giving Broly a good fight, and he would also let them know that when Broly isn't with him, he's usually back on his home planet of Vampa. Also, something to mention is when Bulma returns, she would have Goku and Vegeta go get the last Dragon Ball. After the last Dragon Ball is collected, they would then summon Shenron and wish for the damage caused to Bulma's summer home to be fixed. Anyway, Broly would eventually recover, and he would be confused but happy to see that Paragus is alive. Then when he finds out the truth about Paragus faking his death, he might be a little upset at first, but he would eventually get over it when he realized it was to help him get stronger. Goku then teleports to Vampa a couple days later when Broly, Paragus, Chi-Lai, and Lemma were there. Even though Cold terraforms Vampa to be habitable, Goku still brought supplies and a shelter and a capsule as a gift, which he mentions he'd still like to fight Broly again, which Broly seems to want to fight again as well. He then goes to teleport away, though before he leaves, Chi-Lai asks his name, which he tells him it's Goku, but he says Broly can call him Kakarot.